Chapter 372. This is simply too miraculous. Wan Yuanzhong placed the last prepared confession in front of Qin Hui's desk and exclaimed, "I didn't think that the truth would be like this." The imperial envoy pinched the space between his brows and sighed with a complicated expression. Right now, it was already the second day. After experiencing a sleepless night of tossing and turning, Qin Hui forced herself to stay awake, and Shoshin, who also didn't sleep well, pushed open the door and came out. They pretended to greet each other, putting on an appearance of brotherly respect. After eating breakfast, they set out together with the imperial envoy guards and once again came to Marquis Jinggan Fu. Yesterday, young Lady Zhao said that the investigation would have a result today, so the head of the inspection team from the Central Commission for Discipline Inspection came to check on it. And the most shocking thing was that there really was a result. Placed in front of Qin Darren were stacks of recorded confessions. Today, the Imperial Envoy Guard spent half a day in Marquis Jinggan Fu to once again investigate and collect evidence. It was clear that the work this time went very smoothly and received the support and cooperation of the people of the Marquis Fu. He casually flipped through the confessions one by one, and an amazing story slowly unfolded in front of him like a picture scroll. The testimonies on this table covered all levels of the Marquis Fu's inner household steward, outer household steward, courtyard guard, carriage driver, servants and retainers, maidservants and nannies. The structure was rigorous and the words used were exquisite. From each person's point of view, it reconstructed the soul-stirring scene at that time. Their statements echoed each other and were flawless. Carefully deduced, there were no flaws. Together, they weaved together to form an ironclad truth that was that the Marquis Fu was invaded by armed villains. It was all thanks to everyone's unity that they repelled the villains. As for the magic weapon and so on, it was complete nonsense. Bullshit your mother. If one Yuanzhong wasn't here, Qin Darren simply wanted to flip over the table in front of him. This woman actually made up such a flawless story? No, that's not right. Qin Hui thought of something, and her expression became serious. Brother Yuanzhong, the matter I instructed you to do, have you properly informed them? Wan Yuanzhong nodded and said, "Naturally. How could this official handle the matter Darren instructed?" The imperial envoy looked at the writing table in front of him and slowly said, "Then these testimonies, are they all true?" Wan Yuanzhong patted his chest and said, "Our brothers have been harboring a bellyful of anger for a long time now. In addition to my lord's orders, how could we let our guard down?" Although the members of the Imperial Envoy Guards did not come from the prison, but they still have some understanding of the most basic interrogation techniques. Dealing with those vulgar servants of Marquis Jing and Fu is completely easy and there won't be any problems. When Qin Hui heard this, she instinctively trembled. Then, she said in a complicated tone, Brother Yuanzhong, you should just tell me the results." Wan Yuanzhong was a little confused, but he still replied, "The brothers of the guards have repeatedly verified and questioned the people they questioned, including asking the questions in reverse, picking out a few questions from the middle, or asking about some small details. The other party behaved very normally. We basically believe that they are not lying and that what they said is the truth." Qin Hui's face revealed a complicated and strange expression. He waved his hand and slowly said, "I understand. Brother Yuanzhong, please leave first. I want to be alone for a while." After Wan Yuanzhong closed the door, Qin Hui stood up and paced around the room. Looking at the confession questionnaires on the desk, her expression became extremely gloomy. There were too many suspicious points. The matter of the demonic artifact was true. The so-called armed robbers attacking the Marquis' estate was completely fabricated out of thin air. But if all of this was a lie, why were the servants of the Marquis' estate able to speak of this matter so vividly, to the extent that they were able to answer so fluently, and not even the slightest flaw could be found in the interrogation technique? It must be known that although the basic interrogation techniques were simple, for normal people, it was already enough. Only professionals who had undergone strict training could maintain their calm under these lie detection techniques. Those were only normal servants of the Marquis Fu. How could they have that kind of ability and have undergone that kind of training? He racked his brains, but still couldn't figure it out. In less than a day, a flawless lie that involved hundreds of people was fabricated. It was so lifelike that he couldn't find the slightest mistake or flaw. It was as if this matter had really happened. This simply defied common sense. How did Miss Zhao do it? No, perhaps it was not young lady Zhao who did it. Qin Hui's mind suddenly flashed back to yesterday's morning. At that time, he had the advantage and was pressing on step by step, wanting to take the initiative. At that time, young lady Zhao already had the intention to compromise and give way. However, a servant girl sent over a note that made Zhao Feihuang immediately change her mind. She said that there was already a lead and that the results would be clear in one day. In the end, there was this perfect result today. At that time, he had concluded that Zhao Feihuang had an expert guiding her behind the scenes. Now it seemed that things were not as simple as he had imagined. In one night, to turn a coarse person who did not even know how to read into a well-trained spy. Even the freaks of the inner guards could not do this. After all, everyone's talent and willpower are different. Moreover, there are so many people, this is an impossible task. Qin Hui paced back and forth in place and muttered to himself. I remember that person once said to me that for a suspicious matter, after eliminating all the unrealistic possibilities, the remaining one, no matter how outrageous, must be the truth then. After eliminating the unrealistic possibilities, what is left is, he gazed at the table, and his gaze became deep. Since it is impossible to achieve this through external training and interference, then what is left is a direct influence on the 3 souls and 7 spirits. Brainwashing, soul shifting, witchcraft, soul stealing, mind interference, hypnosis. The secret techniques passed down in the empire, the side techniques passed down in secret among the people, and even the legends of the Western continent, all kinds of methods to control human thoughts flashed through his mind. However, these techniques all had limitations and limits. Almost none of them were suitable for the present situation because the area affected was too large and the number of people were too large. It had already exceeded the limits of any human's ability. In other words, if they had the ability to brainwash everyone in the manner, why not directly control the Imperial Envoy guards? Suddenly, in a flash of light, a light flashed through his mind. Qin Hui abruptly raised his head. His heart was greatly shaken. A demonic implement. He quickly walked to the table and swept the files to the ground. He pulled out a piece of white paper, threw away a large brush, and waved it down. Yes, if it was a demonic implement, then it could be explained. After all, a demonic implement contained a strange and powerful power. As long as there was a suitable user, it could release a powerful power at a very small cost. Thus, the court controlled the demonic implement with the strictest attitude. Thus, this time, the emperor and the other officials had sent the imperial envoy. First, it was to investigate the matter of the demonic implement. Second, if the matter of the demonic implement was true, then they had to track down the whereabouts of this demonic implement. This kind of powerful power could not be allowed to casually circulate among the people. For a moment, Qin Hui's face was as heavy as water. His mind was incomparably empty. Everything that had happened in the past few days, all of the suspicious points and problems, seemed to be continuously strung together by a thread. It was like a broken jigsaw puzzle that was constantly being pieced together by him, returning to its original appearance. Yes, if the truth was like this, then all of the suspicious points were clear. He furrowed his brows and wrote down names one by one on the paper. Hu Shouxin, Zhao Feihuang, Marquis Jinggan Fu, one line after another connected to these names, representing one suspicious point after another and one connection after another. In his mind, one clue after another appeared, attempting to sort out a terrifying truth from within. The servants and servants of Marquis Jinggan Fu were brainwashed overnight. They had an incomparably realistic experience and believed it to be true. The only thing that could do this was a demonic implement. Marquis Jingon Fu had also secretly hidden a demonic implement before. Because of some kind of accident, it caused a rather large disturbance. The disturbance was rapidly suppressed and calmed down. The exact process was unknown. The Ranger Guild and Ming Zhou's officialdom settled this matter. Among them, Hu Shouxin, who originally had nothing to do with this matter, was actually the most active person. He definitely had a connection with this matter that I did not know of. Marquis Jingon Fu, who originally had nothing to do with the Ranger Guild, after this matter, became incomparably close with the Rangers. A steward of the Marquis Fu personally said that Hu Shouxin was an important guest of Marquis Jingon Fu. This was what I heard with my own ears, and it could not be wrong. Young Lady Zhao accidentally revealed during conversation that she had a sweetheart, and it was Hu Shouxin who acted as the matchmaker. Marquis Jingon Fu had an expert guiding them from behind. Even the opinions of that mysterious person had a large influence on Zhao Feihuang's decisions. Hu Shouxin recognized this mysterious person from Marquis Jingon Fu and clearly did not want to mention him. He was even quite fearful of him. The crazy Taoist priest that he met yesterday revealed in their conversation that Marquis Jingon Fu was related to Great Hero Sunday. Moreover, he went to Zhongyi building to deliver a letter. Hu Shouxin had a very intense reaction towards this great hero son. Therefore, there was a large chance that the person that Zhao Feihuang liked, the mysterious person who planned and plotted behind the scenes of the Marquis Fu and the great hero son that Hu Shouxin knew, could be the same person. It was him who handed a slip of paper to Zhao Feihuang and made young lady Zhao confidently make a promise of a day. After a day, the entire Marquis Fu had a false memory. If this was his doing, then that meant he held a demonic weapon that could control people's hearts. Furthermore, he might have even controlled young lady Zhao and indirectly controlled the entire Marquis Fu. This frightening power made Hu Shouxin extremely fearful. But the Ranger Guild was still responsible for covering up and clearing the Marquis Jingon Fu's tracks during the change in the Marquis Fu some time ago. That is to say, the two people were familiar with each other and at least were not complete enemies. They had mutual interests but kept each other in check. Therefore, Hu Shouxin's attitude was ambiguous. Six Fan School's official document mentioned that this matter was completely investigated by a ranger and a Six Fan School constable. But Hu Shouxin did not want to let me see this ranger, and his tone was very unnatural. Qin Hui took a deep breath, as if he discovered that a huge conspiracy was slowly unfolding before his eyes. He said softly, "Then, let us conclude." Raising the brush, the ink that was soaked in ink left a strong mark on the clean white rice paper. Hu Shouxin's name was drawn in a large circle. Although I am an imperial envoy, I secretly carry an even more sacred mission. Therefore, the truth is not important. As long as we can obtain the result we want, it is enough. You're the biggest target, so the main culprit must be you. No matter whether the truth is like this or not, as long as there is sufficient evidence, that is enough. Qin Hui said silently. Using this result to deduce your motive, then the person who wants to collect the demonic weapon is you, Hu Shouxin. Marquis Jingon Fu is only your chess piece. In the next circle, there was Great Hero Sun. This person's surnamed Sun is a ranger and is undoubtedly your lackey, Hu Shouxin. What does he do? He must be a spy that you used to contact Zhao Feihuang. This time, the demonic weapon mutated and caused a huge commotion. Due to a freak combination of factors, that demonic weapon actually chose its owner, which is this Great Hero Sunday. Then, an ordinary ranger had the power to control people's hearts. He even controlled Zhao Feihuang and turned her into his own exclusive property. The entire Marquis Jingon Fu also fell into his control. You, Hu Shouxin, wanted to destroy the evidence, but what is done cannot be undone. The other party has already gained momentum and took advantage of the situation to propose cooperation. You must have something that can be used against you in the other party's hands, so you had no choice but to compromise. Thus, you use your own connections and power to clean up and cover up Marquis Jingon Fu. But you cannot cover up this matter. His Majesty is wise and the sun is bright, sending this official to investigate your crime? But you thought that this official would wallow in the mire with you and wanted to drag this official into the crime. This official feigned civility with you all while enduring humiliation to investigate the truth. After paying a huge sacrifice, I finally understood all of your schemes and exposed your crimes in broad daylight. He gripped the pen tightly, and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. He stared fixedly at Hushoshin's name and shook his head, saying, "Not appropriate, not appropriate. You, great general who have outstanding achievements and have countless old friends in the court. Even if you have committed such a huge crime, there will be people who will protect you. You must be convicted to death so that those people will have nothing to say." And I got it. A cold light flashed through Qin Hui's eyes. His lips trembled and he laughed soundlessly. "What is the purpose of you, General Hu, collecting demonic artifacts? Of course it's for one person, for the greatest taboo of this court, for the reverse scale of His Majesty and Empress. How can you not die for being so deranged?" The pen moved like a dragon and snake, and Hushoshin's name was crossed out with a large cross. "And you?" His gaze turned to Great Hero's son, and Qin Hui sneered. "How powerful are the demonic artifacts? How tempting is the power to control people's hearts? However, this official came for the demonic artifacts this time. His Majesty has been enlightened and bestowed upon me a powerful weapon to resist the demonic artifacts. This official was afraid that you wouldn't come." The words "Great Hero's son" were also crossed out with a large cross. In the end, Zhao Feihuang and Marquis Jinggan Fu were drawn in a horizontal line that was like the edge of a blade, sweeping across. Qin Hui threw down the pen and spat. "Little pawn, you can't help yourself. Accompany him in death." He looked at this piece of paper filled with scribbles, as if this was the king of hell's talisman, deciding life and death with a single stroke. This was the power and power that he pursued. Sooner or later, there will be a day when I will reach this level. Qin Hui closed his eyes and slowly tore this piece of paper to shreds. Since the crime has already been determined, it's time to weave the evidence. First, I need to understand more about this so-called Great Hero Sunday. Chapter 373. When Qin Hui pushed open the door again, he once again turned back into that cultured and refined imperial envoy Darren who knew how to use money and power. Today, the Central Inspection Team carried out a comprehensive investigation in Marquis Jinggan Fu and received the enthusiastic support of the masses. In less than a day, the mission was successfully completed. Imperial envoy Darren Qin Hui had a cordial conversation with the various leaders of the Marquis Fu, expressing the court's concern and His Majesty's importance. In the same reception hall, the atmosphere was completely different from the day before. Zhao Feihuang was full of smiles and asked with a double meaning, "Darren, are you satisfied with this result?" Qin Hui smiled wholeheartedly and clasped his hands, replying, "It's breathtaking, breathtaking. But this Qin dares to ask, how did Miss Zhao do it?" Zhao Feihuang pretended to be ignorant and smiled with pursed lips, replying, "I treat them like family, so of course they treat me like family." No. Qin Hui did not give up and continued to ask, "I'm saying, how did everyone in Marquis Jinggan Fu remember this incident as if it was real in one night?" It was real in the first place. Miss Zhao had a baffled expression and then put on a hurt expression. Oh, even now, Imperial Envoy Darren is still doubting this little girl, doubting the reputation of Marquis Jinggan Fu for being loyal to the country. This little girl really has no way to defend herself. This injustice is hard to redress. Without any choice, I can only die to redress this injustice. Seeing that this Miss Zhao had the urge to act out again, Qin Hui was so frightened that he quickly stopped her. He already did not want to listen to that heart-wrenching drama again. After all, the terrifying scene of the entire Fu crying and the heavens collapsing and the earth splitting was something that the Imperial Envoy Darren could not handle. He laughed bitterly. Since it's like this, then this Qin won't ask anymore. Marquis Jinggan Fu has already provided enough evidence and testimony. What's next is to organize these things into a book and compile them. Then we can write memorials. As for Ming Zhou's government and Six Fan School, we still need to rely on older brother Hu to make arrangements. Hu Shouxin nodded. I know what I'm doing. This matter was not difficult. If Six Fan School and the Ming Zhou government knew that the Marquis of Jing and Fu was secretly concealing a demonic tool and had evidence, then this matter would be very difficult to resolve. After all, this was a serious crime. Even if they offered more bribes and used more connections, they would not be able to suppress this matter. After all, whether money was more important or their official position was more important, the officials were very clear on this. However, the most important problem was that Sun Lang had suppressed the matter of the demonic tool before it had even exploded. In the entire city of Mingzhou, there were no more than 5 people who knew the full story. It was extremely difficult to find any clues. Coupled with Hu Shouxin's reputation and connections as a general of the Heaven's Origin sector, it was not difficult at all to turn the matter into an ironclad case. Now, even if the Ming Zhou government and Six Fan School guessed that there was an inside story, they had no choice but to hold their noses and continue to cover it up. What was done could not be undone, and they would never be able to find a shred of evidence. Also, if the case was overturned and the criminal who entered the Fu with weapons became the demonic tool mutated, then the relevant leaders of the Ming Zhou government and Six Fan School who handled the case would all have to settle the score. At the very least, they would have to bear the responsibility of being a leader and be guilty of negligence. If it was serious, they would be accused of colluding with the Marquis of Jing and Fu. If it was light, they would lose their positions, and if it was heavy, they would be beheaded. Furthermore, if they followed the vine to the melon, they would implicate Hu Shouxin. That was a King general of the Heaven's Origin sector, the famous ruffian Xiaoba, who knew how many generals and feudal officials he had a life and death relationship with. Oh, so to say, for the sake of the truth and for the sake of the country, I have to throw myself in as well. I can't keep my position. I can't have my riches. I can't have my family. I can lose my life, and I have to King offend the Heaven's Origin sector and be hated by countless military officials. Why should I? I'm not King doing it anyway. If anyone wants to do this, I'll be the first to kill them. Therefore, the relevant leaders' thoughts were generally like this. Hu Shouxin was very clear about their thoughts and was not worried at all. But the premise was that the winds in the court were blowing in the current direction. Because the court's attitude was not firm and the imperial envoy's attitude was also very ambiguous, the officials knew this in their hearts, so they were not panicking at all. If the situation was reversed, and the Marquis of Jing and Fu was in trouble, then these officials would definitely be decisive and cut off their tails. They would fight to the death for survival and take the initiative to surrender. Thinking of this, Hu Shouxin glanced at Qin Hui without batting an eyelid. Honorable younger brother Qin, don't make a mistake. Qin Hui did not seem to notice and smiled. Now, the matter of the Marquis of Jing and Fu has been completed. This official will return to Zhong, eat building, and begin organizing the memorials. After the memorials have been organized, I will send them to elder brother Hu and young Miss Zhao to review and correct. After confirming that there are no mistakes, the 3 of us will personally seal them and send them to the capital on a flying horse. How about it? The imperial envoy was on behalf of the heavens to patrol and investigate cases under imperial edict. They were directly responsible to the emperor. The memorials they spoke of could bypass the various departments and reach the emperor's desk. Even the high officials of the border and first-rank officials did not have the right to interfere and review them. It could be said that the emperor's grace and the emperor's life were both more important than a mountain. Under this kind of situation, for the Qin imperial envoy's memorials to be reviewed by Hu and Zhao, this was a bit rebellious. In the end, Hu Shouxin was still a loyal soldier of the empire and a patriotic citizen. For a moment, he could not accept this kind of lawless setting and hesitantly said, "This isn't too good." Qin Hui said seriously, "Brother, you trust me, and I also trust you. It's not that I'm being coy, but this matter is too important. We have to be careful. There can be no concealment or selfishness between us. Brother, only the few of us know about today's matter. Some things can be said clearly. What I've done is already tantamount to deceiving the emperor. Even if I die 10,000 times, I can't absolve myself from the blame. But because this matter concerns Empress Tensei, the slightest carelessness could shake the country. He sighed. It's only been a little more than 2 years since the end of the war. The people have been able to recuperate, and the world is peaceful. I'm also a soldier of Tianyuan. I know that peace is not easy to come by. I can't bear to see this country in turmoil again. So, I can only come up with this plan and conspire with my brother and the others to cover up this matter temporarily. Whether it's right or wrong to plot again can only be left to the judgment of future generations. Hearing this, Hushoshin was touched and held Qin Hui's hand. Brother, Qin Hui also held Hushoshin's hand. The two old soldiers of Tianyuan treated each other with sincerity and were congenial. It was really touching. Zhao Feihuang moved his eyes away as if nothing had happened. He secretly clenched his fists, as if he were having a hard time holding it back. Thankfully, Qin Hui felt that he could not keep up the act anymore. After all, there were no pure bad guys in the world. Even a guy like Qin Hui had the most basic sense of shame and guilt as a human being. Alas, Hushoshin, it's your fault for choosing the wrong path. It's your fault for standing on the wrong side. It's your fault for being too close to that person back then. However, it's perfectly normal. It's all destined. It's your fault for being generous and righteous. It's your fault for being upright. It's your fault for being honorable. It's your fault for being honorable. In this ugly world, there is no room for righteous aliens. Heroes will not die a good death. This is a truth that I've long understood. Yes, it was impossible for good people to survive, and it was impossible for righteous people to survive. In this world, those who valued righteousness over profit would die without a complete corpse, while those who valued profit over righteousness would get promoted and become rich. The principles of sages and so-called morals were nothing more than tools to fool the masses, while those who were bold and shameless would be able to obtain even more. This wasn't the sophistry of despicable villains, but rather the bloody examples that I had seen and heard in my life. I had no choice but to admit and accept this bloody fact. After all, even that person, who was a grand marshal with a noble character and a great reputation like a saint, whose martial arts and divine abilities were as powerful as the rebirth of the god of war, still died without a proper burial ground and died without knowing why. Even such a person died without a sound. Who do you think you are, Hushoshin? Since the battle on the great desolate mountain, I've seen through it completely. I don't want to fight against this world, so I've attached myself to it. So, I'm sorry, General Hu. This Qin is a despicable person. This Qin has long seen through everything. This Qin has compromised. This Qin has attached himself to it. This Qin wants to step on your bones and become a marquis, because that person is already dead. The things that he once showed you and everyone else, the light that everyone admired and followed, have all collapsed with his death. This world is still the same as before. It will always sink into depravity and darkness. No one can change all of this with their own strength. You've resigned because of this, and I've abandoned my past because of this. Qin Hui lowered his eyes. The last trace of hesitation and pity was cut off. His smile became even more sincere. He gripped Hushoshin's hand tightly. So, I know that elder brother believes in me. But this time, you have to listen to me. After all, you can't make a single mistake. You have to be very, very careful. You have to read this memorial a few times. Hushoshin nodded slowly and said solemnly, I understand. Since brother has shouldered the responsibility of a sea of blood for me, I won't be unreasonable. I'll read this memorial. Qin Hui smiled and said, Since it's like this, then younger brother will go back first. Elder brother, please do as you please. He seemed to know that Hushoshin and Zhao Feihuang had something to talk about. He tactfully stood up and left. Without waiting for Hushoshin to urge him to stay, he pushed open the door and left with a smile. He left with a smile, looking like he had no ill feelings, and went to gather the Imperial envoy guards. Once the imperial envoy left, the atmosphere in the hall became strange. The smile on Hushoshin's face gradually disappeared. He asked faintly, "Where's Sun Lang?" Zhao Fei Huang showed a moved expression. Both hands clasped in front of his chest, he said emotionally, "Sun Lang, he of course, is running around for the safety of Marquis Jinggan Fu and me. After all, this is his home, his son's home, a place filled with our children and grandchildren." Hushoshin said coldly, "He didn't run off to play again, right? I thought he would keep an eye on the imperial envoy all day and not let go." Zhao Fei Huang said with a smile, "With Sun Lang's personality, if you let him keep an eye on official Qin all day, there are only two outcomes. The first is that he can't resist playing tricks on the imperial envoy and tormenting him until he becomes paranoid. The second is that he gets impatient and directly blows official Qin's head apart. After all, keeping an eye on one person all day is also a boring job. Uncle Hu, I'm afraid you don't want to see either of these situations." Hushoshin put on a fake smile and said, "In other words, he's doing this for my own good?" Who knew that Miss Zhao would actually sigh softly. "That's right. This little girl is very envious. Sun Lang is very attentive to your matters." Hushoshin was silent. Zhao Fei Huang continued, "When Sun Lang left today, he asked me to pass on a message to Uncle Hu. Think more about your wife and children." Hushoshin faintly said, "This who knows what to do." Miss Zhao smiled faintly and said, "Indeed, when you have someone you like and care about, before you do anything, you will consider the consequences. There will always be a layer of apprehension, even though there are some restrictions, but your heart will still feel happy. The so-called love is just like this. In this world, there really isn't any kind of feeling that can surpass love." Old Hu glanced at Zhao Fei Huang and lightly shook his head. Then he stood up. "This will also take his leave. With Sun Lang keeping an eye on things, nothing will happen to the Marquis Jinggan Fu. Miss Zhao can rest assured." Zhao Fei Huang softly said, "Please also ask Uncle Hu not to let Sun Lang worry." Hushoshin waved his hand. "This Hu knows what to do." He let Miss Zhao not see him off anymore and left the reception pavilion alone. He avoided the imperial envoy guards and left the Marquis Fu through the side door. A moment later, a figure flashed by and stopped behind him. Hushoshin clasped his hands behind his back and calmly said, "Double the number of people monitoring the imperial envoy guards. Closely monitor any letters and news that leak out, especially the imperial envoy Darren. In addition, increase the attention on the Mingzhou Yamen 6 Fan School and the other Yamens. If there are any strange movements, report back immediately." Also, he slightly closed his eyes to hide the cold light. Tensei Province is very powerful, and this Hu is not a pushover. Qin Hui's position is unclear, but in Mingzhou, he can't do anything. Increasing the number of people and strengthening the surveillance was to prevent the imperial envoy guards from feigning civility with Qin Hui and secretly passing on information. Paying close attention to the various Yamens in Mingzhou was to prevent Qin Hui from secretly communicating with them and adding to the variables. There were many wanderers who wandered the gray areas of Mingzhou. They had eyes and ears on both sides of the law. Any movement in Mingzhou could not escape Hushoshin's eyes. Hushoshin narrowed his eyes and gave out orders one after another. All the ranger forces in the Ming province, as well as the connections and forces that Hushoshin had accumulated over the past 20 years on the battlefield, were mobilized. This force could even affect the capital. The post houses on the way from the Ming province to the capital, and even the spies in the Heavenly Policies Department, would pay close attention to what the ambitious princess of the empire would do. "Brother Qin, don't let me down, Empress. This country is protected by the blood and sacrifice of countless heroes. I won't allow you to mess around. Empress of Heaven, my country, I've fought for you for half my life, and you've repaid me with luxurious clothes and jade food. I'll keep my promise, just like before. Sun Lang, and my wife, my daughter, and all of you. When the dust settles and I've completed my final mission, I'll accompany you to live in seclusion in the mountains and never be separated. Come." Chapter 374. The power of the Marquis, the power of the wandering knights, and the power of the imperial envoy. Sun Lang, Hu Shou-shin, and Qin Hui. The three of them each had their own ulterior motives and schemed against each other. They were immersed in the tense and exciting transactions between friends. It was a complete mess. What was more dramatic was that although the leaders schemed against each other, the subordinates did not know the truth. They were kept in the dark and passively carried out orders. This was the fate of being a chess piece. They would never know how wide the chessboard was or what the situation was like. One Yuanzhong was a typical example. He saw Qin Hui as his elder brother and the person who helped him in the officialdom. He was grateful for his kindness and hoped to repay it with his life. However, Qin Hui had never told him the truth. From beginning to end, he was kept in the dark. He did not know what kind of vicious betrayal the brother Qin he respected so much was planning. Now, he was still loyally guarding Qin Hui. He seemed to be casually but vigilantly observing his surroundings. "Sir, the atmosphere today is not right." Qin Hui showed an expression as if he was constipated. If he could, he really did not want to bring one Yuanzhong out again. However, the crux of the problem was that he sorrowfully discovered that one Yuanzhong was still the most reliable of the imperial envoy guards. Although, when did brother Yuanzhong become like this? He did not seem to be like this before. He sighed soundlessly and said tiredly, "Brother Yuanzhong, what's wrong now?" One Yuanzhong did not detect the helplessness and resentment in his superior's words. With a serious expression, he said, "Sir, it seems like someone is following and monitoring us." Qin Hui furrowed his brows and looked around. He also detected some clues. He smiled freely. "Brother is probably worried about us, so he sent someone to secretly protect us." The color of the flag leader's face suddenly changed. He shouted in a low voice, "Monitoring the imperial envoys is a disgraceful act. How could General Hu do such a thing? My lord, this matter is unusual. Could it be that Hu Shou-shin is hiding something from you? Or is he plotting some scheme? I think this is not so simple. Sometimes, I really want to kill you." Qin Hui rolled his eyes but scolded in a low voice, "Quiet. Brother Hu is open and upright, magnanimous. How could he be planning some conspiracy? Don't make wild guesses. You are not allowed to act on your own and cause trouble between us brothers. Do you hear me?" When Wan Yuanzhong heard this, although he was still dissatisfied, he still nodded in agreement. However, he still snorted and said, "You may know a person for a long time without understanding his true nature." Qin Hui sneered and pretended not to hear anything. His eyes swept over the clothes that flashed in the corner behind him, and he sneered inwardly. "Even if you put it nicely, you, Hu Shou-shin, have a guilty conscience. How could you not send someone to monitor me? But even if you were to spy on me, what's the use? Come on, come on. Turn your gaze and attention to me." There was a cold light in the imperial envoy's eyes. His mind was like a wheel as he calculated endlessly in his heart. "You, Hu Shou-shin, are on guard against me. You must be afraid that I will investigate that great hero someday. I'm afraid that this person has an extraordinary significance to you. Since this is someone you care about, then if I investigate this matter, it will certainly divert your attention, right? Today, I asked a few rangers in Zhong Yi Tower whether there was a ranger with the surname Sun who was very close to you recently. You, Hu Shou-shin, manage the guild like an army. The rangers are strictly disciplined and will not easily reveal information. However, the flash of anger on their faces is enough to explain some things. That great hero Sun is also a ranger, but he made the other rangers angry. There is probably only one reason, and that is betrayal." My guess was indeed correct. That great hero Sun was originally your subordinate, but then he betrayed you. Other than this, there's still many clues, enough for me to investigate that great hero Sun one by one. If I can cause him to be unable to hold himself back and appear to deal with me, that would be the best. I have a sharp weapon bestowed by the Emperor. When the time comes, I will take him down on the spot and see what you say. Even if he can hold himself back, there is no harm. When the time comes, I will have enough evidence and divert your attention. When the time comes, everything will be ready. I will kill two birds with one stone and capture all of you in one fell swoop. Qin Hui was here, calculating a foolproof plan. Wan Yuanzhong could not help but ask, "Sir, where are we going?" The imperial envoy said calmly, "When I went to Sixth Fan School yesterday, I chatted with a few constables and understood some things. They happen to know some things. It is said that before the incident at Marquis Jing'an's Fu, a constable and a ranger from Sixth Fan School had worked together to capture a female cat burglar. This female cat burglar was said to be the accomplice of that group of criminals. After experiencing a series of events, she finally chose to abandon the dark for the light and reported this big case to the government. It can be said that she made a meritorious contribution, so her merits offset her demerits. Wan Yuanzhong had also seen the file and knew that there was an awkward part of the entire case. The file clearly said that the armed criminals attacked Marquis Jing'an's Fu. It was all thanks to a ranger and a constable who found clues in advance that the Ranger Guild and Sixth Fan School received the news and cooperated with the guards and servants of Marquis Jing'an's Fu to capture all the criminals in one fell swoop. But that constable had already resigned, and there was no trace of this ranger. Without two strong witnesses, the investigation of this case was not perfect. Now, there seemed to be a clue. His eyes lit up, and he rubbed his palms together. "Isn't this another witness? Since Sir knows about this, why don't you have the Mingzhou prefect summon this female cat burglar to interrogate her and record her testimony to cooperate with the investigation? With this direct witness, the memorial can be written more beautifully." Qin Hui sneered in her heart. The officials in the world were all evil. They only cared about their own political achievements and positions. How could they take the initiative to take on this kind of thankless task? They only knew how to be perfunctory, deal with the matter, evade it in every way possible, and refuse to cooperate. He shook his head and said, "We can't find her. We can't find this female cat burglar anymore." The prefect once sent someone to ask. After this female cat burglar was released, she seemed to have disappeared from the face of the earth. We don't know where she went. According to speculation, she might have felt that she couldn't survive in Mingzhou anymore, so she ran away to make a living. Wan Yuanzhong snorted. "Look for the ranger." The ranger went out on official business. "Look for the constable," but the constable has already resigned and left. "Look for the female cat burglar," but the female cat burglar has also disappeared. Why are the three most important witnesses of this case all missing? Isn't this too much of coincidence? Sir, I feel that there is something fishy about this matter. Qin Hui's expression was strange. She quickly interrupted Wan Yuanzhong and stopped him from continuing. "So, the officials can't help. We can only rely on you and me to investigate incognito." Fortunately, the Sixth Fan School's constable, Sir Liang Bufan, pointed out a way for me to find someone in private. Wan Yuanzhong asked curiously, "Who?" The imperial envoy slowly said, "Zhang Jianyuan. That person's name is Zhang Jianyuan." The flag-bearer looked suspicious. He pondered and said, "I seem to have heard of this name before. Oh, I remember now." He clapped his hands and nodded heavily. "The day before yesterday, when I was sitting in Zhongyi Tower, I heard a ranger talking about this person. It is said that he is a person who has recently risen in Mingzhou. He can be said to be in the limelight for a while. Judging from his recent deeds, this Minister Zhang seems to be a good person." Facing Qin Hui's questioning gaze, Wan Yuanzhong counted on his fingers and said, "He started his business by selling a delicacy called stinky tofu. The stinky tofu is delicious, cheap, and nutritious. In just a month, it became popular in Mingzhou. Because it was sold at an extremely low price, even the poor could eat it. He added to the diet of tens of thousands of people. He is really a great benefactor. After he became rich, he did not forget his roots. He was rich and benevolent. He often opened a porridge stall, gave food and clothing to the beggars, sponsored poor children to study and practice martial arts, donated money and materials to the sanatorium and Leaky Pond Garden. He even received praise and an inscription from the prefecture lord. He also recruited poor men who had no land or family to work for him. He gave them a place to settle down and let them earn money and have a house to live in. Recently, he even bought a newspaper saying that he wanted to be the mouthpiece of the people, to speak for the people, and to plead for the people. At this point, Wan Yuanzhong nodded repeatedly. A gratified look appeared on his face. Our dynasty needs a kind-hearted businessman like this. If there were 10,000 Zhang Jiyuans, we would not have to worry about the dynasty's prosperity and the country's instability. This Minister Zhang will definitely be a tycoon in the future, benefiting the people and serving the court. Qin Hui faintly felt that something was wrong, but after thinking about it carefully, he could not put his finger on it. He could not figure it out no matter how hard he thought about it. So he could only suppress the uneasiness in his heart and smile. Stinky tofu? When I came to Mingzhou, I also heard of this thing, but the name is also strange. Why is there a stinky in a good food? But since so many people like it, there must be something special about it. This time, we're in luck. Let's go visit this Minister Zhang and try this snack that is popular in Mingzhou. Wan Yuanzhong nodded with a smile. Just as he was about to speak, he felt his hairs stand on end, as if he had a premonition. Sure enough, in the next moment, a loud shout came from the corner behind them. Amateus Buddha, the two benefactors in front, please stop, please stop. I see that your figures are bleak and your auras are obscure. I'm afraid that you're about to encounter some black-hearted merchant and be contaminated with filthy things. Be careful, be careful. Qin Hui and Wan Yuanzhong would never forget this tone, this voice, this way of speaking. The flag bearers suddenly turned around and shouted angrily, "Good! How dare you, a Taoist priest, appear in front of your grandfather? Do you really want to be taken to the Yamen and beaten dozens of times?" Qin Hui pulled Wan Yuanzhong, indicating that he should not be impulsive. The imperial envoy's expression became meaningful. This Taoist priest was related to Hero Sun and was very likely to be Hero Sun's lackey. He had also sent a letter to Hu Shouxin. So what was his purpose in coming here this time? Was it another round of Hero Sun's testing? I want to see what medicine you have in your gourd. The imperial envoy calmly cupped his hands in salute and said with a smile, "Greetings, Taoist priest." Taoist Bai Shui also returned the salute and raised his head to look at Qin Hui. He said sincerely, "Sir, forgive this humble Taoist for speaking bluntly, but your bloody disaster seems to have become more serious." If it was the previous Lord Qin, hearing this, he would definitely fly into a rage. However, now that he had seen through the truth of the matter, how could he get angry so easily? The Taoist priest in front of him was nothing more than a pawn and a lobbyist for that thief surnamed Sunday. The so-called bloody calamity wasn't calculated by this Taoist priest, but by that thief's threatening words. "If you want to use such a clumsy trick to frighten me, then keep on dreaming," he sneered in his heart. Stupid, stupid beyond belief. You actually found a Taoist priest to play tricks. Son, is this all you can do? I'm afraid that even in your dreams, you would never have imagined that I, Qin, had accidentally seen through your evil schemes and even found out about your background. Humph, since you've given me such a big gift, how can I not accept it? I'll beat you at your own game and drag you out step by step from this Taoist priest. While Qin Hui was making up her mind, the impatient Wan Yuanzhong had already started scolding. "Old thing, you're still pestering me and spouting nonsense." However, Taoist Bai Shui did not get angry this time. Instead, he looked at Wan Yuanzhong meaningfully and revealed a complex and emotional smile. This smile made Wan Yuanzhong shiver. He took 2 steps back and said in a trembling voice, What scheme do you have now?" Qin Hui pressed on Wan Yuanzhong's shoulder and signaled him to calm down. She then bowed to Taoist Bai Shui and said, "Taoist priest, I was born in a humble family. I've been learning literature and martial arts since I was a child. I've studied the teachings of the sages and cultivated the heart of self-improvement. I don't believe in those ethereal things, but I still respect monks. Taoist priest, you've said time and time again that I'll have a bloody disaster. I'm stupid and can't distinguish between truth and falsehood. I can only tell you that if you want money, I have a silver ingot here. Please accept it." Taoist Bai Shui said angrily, "How many times have I said that I don't want money? I don't want anything from you. Why don't you believe me?" Qin Hui didn't get angry. She smiled and said, "Then Taoist priest is a kind-hearted person. I'm grateful for your kindness. Taoist priest has already given me advice several times. Just because of this fate, I'm all ears. Taoist priest, please tell me what kind of bloody disaster I'm facing and how to resolve it. Wan Yuanzhong said anxiously. Brother, this old guy is just talking nonsense. Qin Hui said seriously. Brother, don't jump to conclusions. Taoist by Shui was a little embarrassed. Do I have to say directly that you look malicious and your eyes are vicious? You must be planning to betray me repeatedly. It's very likely that you'll fail and get killed. I advise you to stop harming others and run away quickly. Only then can you catch a glimmer of hope. If that's the case, I'll be dead. He hesitated for a moment and said vaguely, I can't reveal the secrets of heaven. I can only say that I advise you not to do everything and say everything. If you do too much, your fate will end early. You should understand that if you continue to speak, you'll violate the taboo. Qin Hui sneered in her heart. I should understand? Ha ha ha, of course I understand. Ridiculous, really ridiculous. What is this? Begging for mercy? Son, is this all you've got? It's not enough. Since that's the case, I'll add more oil to your fire. The female cat burglar is an important witness. The female cat burglar was caught by Sun and the constable together. Zhang Jianyuan has clues about the female cat burglar. That hero's son also knows that the female cat burglar is the key to this big lie. Then, if he knows that I'm investigating the female cat burglar, what kind of expression will he have? I'll let the Taoist priest you sent to convey this matter to you. He laughed and said, listening to your words is better than reading books for 10 years. I'll remember your teachings. I still have to visit Zhang Jianyuan, so I'll take my leave now. Taoist by Shui's expression changed when he heard that. He said repeatedly, you can't go to this place. Humph. This Taoist priest is too shallow. Can't go. I'll go and take a look. Chapter 375. Qin Hui still had a smile on his face, but he sneered in his heart. Why can't I go? You're afraid. You're afraid that I'll get important information and secrets from Zhang Jianyuan. Since you're afraid, then I have no reason not to go. He smiled, saluted, and was about to leave with Wan Yuanzhong. Taoist by Shui stood in front of him and said anxiously, Sir, don't go, it's dangerous. Hey, Taoist priest, you're so annoying. Qin Hui stopped and said with a smile, I'm here to visit Mr. Zhang, a righteous merchant in Mingzhou. What danger can there be? Righteous merchants? Taoist White Snow said angrily. How can those heartless, black-hearted merchants be called righteous merchants? You two are living a good life. Why do you have to live in a cesspool? Shut up, shameless old thief. Wan Yuanzhong took the opportunity to step forward and righteously said, Zhang Yuanwei didn't forget to benefit the common people. He supported the old and the young and supported the weak. Many beggars were able to eat because of him, and many poor families were able to support their families because of him. He practiced what he preached and didn't forget the teachings of the sages. He repaid the common people and served the country. He is a respectable businessman, but you keep saying that he is black-hearted and heartless. What can you, the Taoist priest, do? Taoist by Shui was tongue-tied. Wan Yuanzhong was not going to let him off after gaining the upper hand. He continued, You wear a Taoist robe and tie your hair into a bun. You have the guts to call yourself a Taoist and pretend to be a monk. You don't work and don't want to have children. You only know how to beg alms and waste food so that those hard-working believers can feed you. People like you are useless to the country and unfilial to your ancestors. You're a disgrace to your parents, to the country, and to heaven and earth. How can you still live in this world? Qin Hui found it interesting. Suddenly, he wanted to teach this clumsy and shameless Taoist a lesson. He laughed and said, Brother Yuanzhong, don't be so mean. You should know that the secrets of heaven can't be revealed. Although you know that this trip is not good, you don't know how to explain it to us, right? Taoist White Snow grasped at straws and nodded vigorously. Yes. Qin Hui grabbed Taoist White Snow's hand and said with a smile, If that's the case, I'll have to trouble you to come with us. Since the Taoist priest knew that something was amiss, he must have a solution, right? If that's the case, I'll leave everything to you. The Taoist priest's face turned pale. He struggled hard and said, I don't want to. I don't want to go there. I don't want to see him. The more he struggled, the more Qin Hui's guess was confirmed. She laughed and said, Don't be so polite, Taoist priest. This Squire Zhang is kind and benevolent. He supports widows and widows alike. He will definitely treat a wandering master like you well. Just go and beg for alms and eat a delicious stinky tofu. It's also good. Taoist by Shui's legs trembled when he heard this. He resisted with all his might. I don't want to eat it. Zhang Jinyuan's stinky tofu is made of feces. Qin Hui laughed and said, You really know how to joke. Although I haven't tasted the stinky tofu, I don't think the people in Mingzhou are stupid. If the stinky tofu is made of feces, how can it be sold so well? Taoist priest, you're making irresponsible remarks and accusing the local merchants of selling poisoned food. According to our court's crime of false accusations, you should be executed. He gave Wan Yuanzhong a look. Wan Yuanzhong also understood. He laughed and grabbed Taoist White Snow's other arm. The two of them exerted force and carried the poor Taoist White Snow away quickly. The poor Taoist priest had not recovered from his serious injuries and was a Dharma professional. His close combat skills were poor, and he could not resist at all. Therefore, he could only shout, Help! Help! Wan Yuanzhong covered his mouth as if nothing had happened. Thus, the poor Taoist White Snow was carried away just like that. A moment later, the figure of Sanzang of the Tang family appeared from the corner of the street. Looking at Taoist White Snow's desolate and desperate figure, he chanted the name of Buddha. She praised, Senior Brother White Snow is really sincere and has a good foresight. He told me early that no matter what happens, as long as his life is not in danger, I should stay in the dark to protect him and not show up. He should have expected this situation to make such a big sacrifice in order to take in a disciple. After that, a puzzled look appeared on her face. Why did I say sacrifice? Suddenly, a familiar voice sounded in the master's ear. At this breast, Sanzang of the Tang family? Why are you here? The nun's expression changed. She turned her head and looked, then put her palms together and saluted. Benefactor son, how have you been? Sun Lang said proudly. Of course I'm always healthy. The marshal and so on did not attract the attention of the Tang clan Sanzang. In any case, the demonic monk already knew that this benefactor surnamed Sun, in addition to his shocking martial arts, also had an earth-shattering mouth. From time to time, he would spout shocking words. It would not be strange even if he said anything, she smiled. That's good. Sun Lang looked at her a few times. Didn't you go back to Diju Temple? Why? Did you come out to drink and eat meat? Sanzang of the Tang family's expression froze slightly, and then he smiled unnaturally. Benefactor, you must be joking. I left the temple this time to find Senior Brother White Snow. Sun Lang frowned. He ran away again. The master nodded, and then remembered an important thing. He asked, Have you received the news, Benefactor son? A person surnamed Qin is asking about you. It seems that he wants to harm you. Sun Lang showed an Moses Roy expression. Meow, 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 meow. How did you know? Thus, Sanzang prepared to talk about what had happened from Taoist by Shui's chance encounter with Qin Wan and the other person, to their quarrel, to Taoist by Shui's physiognomy divination. After hearing that Taoist by Shui had gone to Zhongyi Tower to deliver a letter, a strange light flashed in Sun Lang's eyes. Rubbing his chin, he muttered, What a coincidence. I didn't expect an unexpected variable to appear. Taoist by Shui interfered, and then happened to run into Qin Hui, who assisted him a few times. A person's fate is really unpredictable. Even if it seems like a very, very stable plan, for some small reason, it can develop in the opposite direction from what we expected. Sanzang clearly didn't understand. Benefactor, what are you talking about? Sun Lang came back to his senses and just smiled. So what about Taoist by Shui? The demon monk honestly told him about the Taoist priest and Wan Yuanzhong. Hearing this, Sun Lang rolled his eyes wildly. Does he want to set up the Office of Strategic Deception? When he heard that Taoist by Shui had been taken by Qin Wan and the other person to look for Zhang Jinyuan, his eyes immediately flashed with excitement. He rubbed his hands together and murmured to himself, "Great, great. I haven't opened for business in a long time, and my hands are itching. This is really a great opportunity sent to me by the heavens." Looking at him like this, Sanzang's bright and transparent heart, as a cultivator, immediately sensed immense and terrifying malice. She asked warily, "Benefactor, what are you doing?" Sun Lang smiled sincerely. "Look, Taoist by Shui is my friend, and Zhang Jinyuan is also my friend. Qin Hui is up to no good. Both my friends are in danger, so how can we just sit back and watch? Come, just in time. Master Sanzang, let's team up to clear Embroidery Hall's instance." The nun was a little hesitant. Although she was simple, she wasn't stupid and could clearly sense the malice emanating from Sun Lang. But she had to go to Embroidery Hall anyway and didn't know the way, so she could only say helplessly, "Benefactor, please lead the way." Sun Lang frowned. "You don't know the way?" Master Sanzang was puzzled. "I don't know where Embroidery Hall is, and I don't know who Zhang Jinyuan is. How can I know the way?" No. Sun Lang pinched the space between his eyebrows. "You don't know who Zhang Jinyuan is? Didn't I tell you? When Ping Yidao died, Taoist by Shui lost his temper and refused to go to the Ju temple. Let me tell you, he has a close friend called Zhang Jinyuan. If you go to him for help, he will definitely be able to persuade Taoist by Shui to go and recuperate. It happened about half a month ago. I think if it's a novel, more than 100 chapters have passed." Master Sanzang raised his eyebrows and raised his voice. "Close friend?" Sun Lang was startled and felt a little guilty. But on second thought, he thought, "I can destroy 10 of you with one breast-grabbing dragon claw. What's there to be afraid of?" So he said calmly, "Yes, they're close friends. What's wrong?" Master Sanzang said indignantly, "I knew it. Senior brother by Shui is cunning. He swore before that if he lied to me, he would be drowned in a dung vat by Zhang Jinyuan. I thought he really swore such an oath. It turns out that Zhang Jinyuan is his good friend. Why would he drown him in a dung vat? I'm afraid he's in cahoots with him. No, Zhang Jinyuan is really capable of doing such a thing." Sun Lang rolled his eyes and swallowed these words. For this guy, creating big news was one of the great pleasures of life, and leading good children astray was another great pleasure of life. While doing business, he could also entertain himself a little. Why wouldn't he do it? So he pretended to be surprised and said, "This Taoist priest by Shui is really too careless." "Oh, I understand. It turns out that he has been acting all along for today. You see, he felt that he couldn't escape from your hands, so he deliberately showed weakness and lowered your vigilance. Then he took advantage of a negotiation with Qin Hui to plot and scheme so that these two people would bring him to Zhang Jinyuan of the Embroidery Hall. Then, with the help of his close friend's strength, he could escape and get rid of your evil claws forever." There were many flaws in his words, but Master Sanzang was a monk and was sincere and simple. How could he be a match for Sun Lang, who was used to deceiving little girls? In addition, at this time, she had fallen into the betrayed debuff. Her intelligence was greatly reduced, and she became angry out of humiliation. As the saying goes, even a clay figurine has some anger, let alone her. She sneered a few times. "Buddha is merciful, since Zhang Jinyuan is unwilling to throw senior brother by Shui into a dung vat. Let me do it for him." Sun Lang was overjoyed. "You have talent. You have talent. Come on. Let's form a team and go to the Embroidery Hall together. Let's kill all 4 bosses in one fell swoop." Chapter 376. Sun Lang was overjoyed. "You have talent. You have talent. Come on. Let's form a team and clear the Embroidery Hall together. Let's catch all 4 bosses in one fell swoop." Master Sanzang looked suspicious. "Catch all of them in one fell swoop?" Sun Mo waved his hand and said, "There's no time to talk. Mantis Shrimp, let's go." Therefore, after Qin Hui, Wan Yuanzhong, and priest by Shui made up the double flag insertion and double flag insertion team and rushed to the embroidery spring hall. The journey to the west team, made up of Sun and Master Sanzang, also set off. Zhang Jianyuan had obviously become a wild monster, shining with golden light, and was in an awkward position. Along the way, Master Sanzang's expression was a little uncertain. Sun Lang turned his head as he walked and asked, "What's wrong with you?" The demon monk was in a trance for a moment, then hesitated and said, "Benefactor, you said that you told me about Zhang Jianyuan half a month ago. You also told me that if senior brother Bai Shui was unwilling to go back to Deju Temple with me to recuperate, I should find Zhang Jianyuan to persuade him." Sun Lang was a little confused and nodded. "Yes." Master Sanzang frowned even more. Why do I have no impression of this at all? Then your amnesia is serious." Sun Lang squinted at her and said, "If you don't remember this clearly, then how did you send priest Bai Shui to Deju Temple?" Master Sanzang of the Tang family thought for a moment, and a helpless look appeared on her face. She shook her head and said, "I don't know why. I don't remember this clearly." "Are you a fish?" "What?" Sun Lang waved his hand, obviously not taking it to heart. "Nothing. You should also forget this matter." Master Sanzang closed her mouth. She was a monk and was not used to troubling others, but a trace of worry floated between her eyebrows and her lips were pursed. The two of them hurried on in silence. Their martial arts were excellent, and their speed was fast. Even if they set off from another road, they were ahead of the flag insertion team. The embroidery hall, a place filled with beautiful memories, was right in front of him. This was the civilian area of the city. It was a low alley. After embroidery hall made a lot of money, they didn't move their factory. Instead, they bought land on the original foundation and expanded the factory area to form a standard for industrialization. They built a food processing factory around it. This Counselor Zhang didn't forget his hometown when he became rich. He helped the poor people in the surrounding area and recruited them to work in the food processing factory with generous rewards. He was also worried that the villagers wouldn't have anywhere to spend the money they earned, so he continued to build various gambling houses, taverns, tea houses, and so on in the surrounding area. He was also worried about the housing problem of the next generation, so he bought a large piece of land to build houses for his fellow villagers. In short, they had not seen such a kind person for a long time. With the help of Squire Zhang Jianyuan, these poor squares began to be full of vitality. Everyone praised Squire Zhang Jianyuan for being such a good person. He was blessed by the Bodhisattva Amitabha. Even though Master Sanzang was a monk, he could also see the thriving scene here. He put his palms together and said, "Good, good." A gentle light flashed in Sun Lang's eyes, as if he was recalling something. This place was indeed filled with beautiful memories. This was the place he and Zhang Yinluo had come to. At that time, they had just met. That reckless and silly girl had shamelessly begged him to meddle in Qin Yu's business. So they came here. At that time, the embroidery hall was still a mafia organization. They had a battle of wits and courage with Zhang Jianyuan. They used very powerful tools to defeat these vicious scum of society. They also used love to influence them, making them turn over a new leaf and become good people now. Under his teachings and guidance, Zhang Jianyuan had already grown into an extraordinary person. So fast. Moreover, the fate between people was truly miraculous. At that time, I was afraid that I would never have thought that the busted constable beside me would be such a precious treasure. At that time, I was afraid that I would never have thought that Zhang Jianyuan, who had been blown up and taken away by me, would become so promising now. Sun Lang seemed to have realized something. He said softly, "Who is the most famous capitalist in Mingzhou City?" With Master Sanzang's state of mind and political awareness, he probably didn't even know what the term capitalist meant. However, she knew who the two of them were here for, so she asked tentatively, "Zhang Jianyuan?" Zhang Jianyuan, 2 Malawian kwaches, capitalist limited edition. "Sit." Master Sanzang looked around. "Where should I sit?" However, Sun Lang was already talking to himself. On average, he sells 350 pieces of stinky tofu every minute. He does charity among the people to increase his reputation. He colludes with officials and businessmen to find backers. He accumulates capital to recruit workers. He can continuously exploit, monopolize, expand production, and play in real estate. He is a hero among capitalists. Then he raised his thumb and pointed at himself. He said proudly, "I taught him." Master Sanzang's mouth twitched. He didn't know how to answer, so he could only say, Ba. For some reason, Sun Lang's mood suddenly became better. He smiled and looked at the other side, at the three people who were rushing in the direction of the embroidery hall. Forget it. I'll save Zhang Jinyuan some face today. I really want to see how far he can go. Speaking of this, he narrowed his eyes and smiled. I've decided. I'll find a chance in the future to pass down the way of the sickle and hammer. Maybe the history books of the future will record that a cannon in the imperial city of the empire sent communism to the divine power of flames. He had no idea what Almsgiver-san was talking about. At this time, Zhang Jinyuan, who had escaped because of Sun Lang's sudden change in mood, was sitting in the study and looking at the reports. The daily sales, the delicious food that was popular in Mingzhou, the constantly expanding production scale, and the multifaceted industrial layout. All the results made him full of enthusiasm and energy. He also felt that he was an idiot in the past. Damn it, I was really an idiot in the past. Doing business is so much more profitable than opening an incense hall, and it's so much better. Sure enough, this business is just like what my master son, said, a sea of blue, a sea of blue. One of his trusted subordinates was standing next to him. He carefully reported, big, fragrant head. Oh no, President, we caught 2 more bugs today. 2 lazy and dissolute little bastards were spying on the stinky tofu production technique. They should have been sent by someone with ulterior motives who wants to snatch our rice bowl. How do you want to deal with them? Do you want to cripple one of their hands or... Damn it, we are businessmen with a clean background. How can we do such a bloody thing? Zhang Jinyuan rolled his eyes and then said earnestly, My master once taught me that we are businessmen and capitalists. We can't kill people with blood, do you understand? The confidant seemed to understand, but not quite. Zhang Jinyuan sighed. Sure enough, it was just as his master had said. What was the most important thing in the world? It was talent. He had to train a few capable assistants. He patiently said, The workers we recruited are all from the surrounding residents. Go and find out the origins of those 2 little thieves. Then, get 2 eloquent people from the public relations department to suppress those 2 little thieves and send them to the authorities with great fanfare. While you're at it, tell the villagers about their crimes. Yes, tell them that if they steal the secret of stinky tofu, then people who are jealous of our industry will compete with us. They will use shameless and underhanded methods to make us go bankrupt and kick us out. Then everyone's jobs and money will be gone. The confidant said happily, If that's the case, let alone those 2 little thieves, their whole families will be finished. Zhang Jinyuan kicked him and scolded, Finish my ass. Then you personally bring some people with some gifts and go to the 2 little thieves' families to express your concern. Tell them that the child was possessed and made a mistake. Although he has to go to the authorities, the prefecture lord has already made arrangements and won't give him a heavy sentence. Send him to the authorities to teach him a lesson or something. In any case, pick some good words for me. Oh, right. Remember to open the door when you speak so that the surrounding villagers can hear you. Do you understand? The confidant was confused for a long time before he finally understood. President, brilliant, brilliant. CEO Zhang waved his hand and said, Compared to my esteemed teacher, they are far inferior. Oh, that's right. Call a few reporters over as well. This matter needs to be written about in a special way. Let those poor scholars write about it properly. The main point is to highlight the humanity of Embroidery Hall, highlight the despicableness of our competitors, and highlight our tenacity. In short, gather the hearts of the people for me. The confidant nodded repeatedly. Save it, save it. You've already reminded them so many times. If those poor scholars still don't know how to write, kick them all to the jars and make them raw materials. Zhang Jianyuan thought of another matter. How are the preparations for the ice brick factory going? The confidant took out a thick book from his chest and flipped through a few pages. He said, I've already sent people to the grasslands and the market to find some skilled craftsmen. Next, we'll use money to win them over and move them with sincerity. The location is also easy. Mingzhou also has ready-made ice fields and ice cellars. Winter is not far away. We should be able to take the opportunity to stock up a lot of ice cubes. Zhang Jianyuan nodded and said, we can't just sell stinky tofu. The scale and variety of our business have to be expanded. Furthermore, we have to do things that others can't think of. We have to make them eat our dust forever. The idea of making ice bricks was personally decided by my master. There must be a way to do this, and we have to pay attention to it. As for the name, it's also according to my master's idea. We'll call it Guangming brand Ice Bricks. Although I don't know why it has to be called this name, it's still catchy. The confidant was startled. Guangming brand? What's that? Just like the people of Mingzhou who talk about osmanthus wine, they will mention Qiuming. When they talk about braised carp, they will definitely talk about Feng Yuan restaurant. This kind of name represents the people's hearts and credibility. Zhang Jianyuan said lightly, you just said that there are many people who covet the recipe of stinky tofu. There will be a day when we won't be able to keep it. After all, human nature is really corrupt. He put down the book in his hand and slowly said, so before that, we have to be prepared. That is, we have to announce it widely and let the first impression be the strongest. When the people want to eat stinky tofu, they will definitely remember the taste of embroidery hall. Even if there are many imitators in the world, they won't be able to compete with us. So, even if the recipe is leaked, what does it matter? This is the power of a brand. My master is really a knowledgeable person. If he sets foot in the business world, I'm only fit to carry his shoes. The confidant was suddenly enlightened. Then, he said in admiration, that hero-son is really a capable person. It's a pity that we don't have the fortune to hear his teachings. Speaking of this, Zhang Jianyuan was also a little annoyed. You really don't have the fortune. I also once suggested to ask my master to come and teach you a few words. His words, even if it's just a few words, can benefit you for the rest of your life. However, his temper is a little strange. He refused on the spot and said, it feels like a pyramid scheme. I won't go, or something like that. What exactly is a pyramid scheme? I feel that it's a very amazing thing. The two of them were sighing when suddenly a person rushed in. Big incense head, big. Zhang Jianyuan's eyes narrowed. His body shook and a domineering aura exuded. He shouted in a low voice, call me CEO. Yes, yes, yes. The person who came in was also Big Incense Head's confidant. He was the son of his old buddies who had worked hard with him. Some of his buddies had died, and some of them had retired. However, they were no longer around. The oath from back then was still there. His buddies were all treated like their own sons. Zhang Jianyuan chose a few smart and motivated ones to stay by his side, wanting to train them to be independent. Therefore, he didn't hold back and scolded. Can't you be a little more mature? Is there a fire burning your butt? What's so important that you're in such a hurry? The confidant took 2 deep breaths. The Taoist priest is here. Zhang Jianyuan didn't react for a while. He frowned and said, Taoist priest? Begging for alms? F*CK. Taoist priest, give him a bowl of stinky tofu and send him away. The confidant was startled. CEO, aren't you going to see him? Zhang Jianyuan became more and more impatient. Why should I see a Taoist priest? He's not. That's right. The confidant felt wronged. You haven't seen that Taoist priest for half a month. Aren't you very worried about him? You always ordered the brothers who set up the arenas in the city to pay attention to the Taoist priest's whereabouts. You even sent someone to Zhongyi Tower to ask. Later, you found out that he went to a temple to recuperate. Only then did you feel relieved. However, you still felt that he would run out, so you still ordered us to pay attention to him. Once there was news, we would inform you. The more Zhang Jianyuan listened, the more he felt that something was wrong. He raised his hand and threw a book over. He scolded, bullshit. Well, have I ever been worried about him? I'm just afraid that he'll die too early and I won't be able to enjoy myself to my heart's content. After all, this old thing is quite interesting. Where is he now? He's already 2 miles away. It won't take long for him to come over. Big Incense Head had already stood up. He clenched his fists and sneered. He even came himself. Third Wazi, I personally prepared a jar of stinky tofu half a month ago. You know where I put it, right? Go and get it for me. I'll personally entertain him today. After saying that, Big Incense Head walked out of the door. He's so fast. The young man who came in to report glanced at his companions and sighed and whispered, "It's as if his ass is on fire." Taoist by Shui was driven all the way to the embroidery hall with a sad face. He had said all the good and bad things, begging and threatening, saying that this trip would be dangerous. Unfortunately, no matter what he said to scare people or begged for mercy, Qin Hui regarded it as a guilty conscience and a fart. She sneered and ignored him. In addition, one Yuanzhong didn't like Taoist by Shui and also ridiculed him. In the end, Taoist by Shui became angry. Based on the principle that he wouldn't lose anything if he dragged someone down with him, he made up his mind and decided to die together with these two bastards. Therefore, he stopped struggling and stopped talking. He began to think of a vicious plan in his heart. I occasionally heard that this bastard Zhang Jianyuan was widely winning people's hearts near his nest. I don't know how many people were bewitched and deceived by him and became his informants. The three of us must be very conspicuous. There's no reason for him not to receive the news. I'm afraid that by now, our whereabouts have already been known by that bastard. Taoist by Shui sneered in his heart. With this bastard's vicious heart, he must be overjoyed when he heard that I took the initiative to come to him. He has a deep hatred for me and must have prepared many vicious plans to frame me. I can't escape this disaster, but you two scumbags can't escape either. Humph, humph, humph. Just as he was thinking about this, his heart suddenly skipped a beat as if he had sensed something. He raised his head and saw a familiar figure walking out of a large house in front of him. That repulsive face, that cunning expression, that annoying look, who else could it be but Zhang Jianyuan? The Taoist by Shui looked around. Qin Hui and one Yuanzhong were still holding his arms, as if they were afraid that he would run away. Anyone with a discerning eye would know that I was being held hostage by those two fellows. Those who acted bravely for justice would definitely scold me loudly and interfere. However, with the feud between Zhang Jianyuan and me, he would definitely gloat and mock me after seeing it. In that case, I would beat him at his own game and drag the hatred onto him. Li Changshu frowned. He sneered and waited for Zhang Jianyuan to come closer. Zhang Jianyuan was coming this way. His appearance became clearer and clearer, and his expression became more and more obvious. On his face, there was clearly anger. Then Taoist by Shui heard an angry shout. "You two, let go of that Taoist. Don't you know that he's injured?" What's going on? Just as a small disturbance and magic unfolded in front of the embroidery hall, another story happened in the backyard. Near the treasury of the embroidery hall, Sun Lang had just climbed up the wall when he saw a young man carrying a jar and walking out with a subtle expression on his face as if he was facing a great enemy. It was as if he was holding a jar of dung. Sun Lang sniffed and seemed to smell a familiar scent, so he jumped down the wall and went straight to the young man. He patted the young man's shoulder and asked, "What's in it?" Chapter 377. The young man, who was called Sanwazi by Zhang Jianyuan, took out a jar of stinky tofu made by his fourth uncle Zhang and walked out with a subtle expression. He was so careful that it was as if he was not carrying stinky tofu, but a bomb that could explode at any time. Although this terrifying thing was well sealed, it still emitted a horrible smell, constantly reminding Sanwazi of the horror of this thing. He felt that if he shook his little hand and smashed this jar, all the birds and beasts in this area would be wiped out. As Zhang Jianyuan's confidant, he knew the origin of this thing. Anyway, every time he thought about it, he could not help but shudder. In the past half a month, fourth Uncle Zhang seemed to be very lonely. Occasionally, when he was free, He would sit alone in a chair with a blank expression, as if he felt that something was missing around him. Then he would go to the R&D workshop, drive all the craftsmen out, and make the thick material by himself. Soon, he seemed to realize something and had something new to do. Therefore, every night, Sanwazi would see that familiar figure in the R&D workshop. Uncle C kept adding all kinds of dangerous and strange things into the marinade with a warm smile on his face, shouting Snow White, "You old thief," and so on. He seemed to be very happy. The special marinade that had been tempered thousands of times and blended with some kind of terrible emotion was gradually perfected with these shouts. Finally, the essence of the marinade was condensed, and it was completed. The result was this heavy jar in his hand, which looked like feces. "President, it's fine if you make it in private and feed it to the Taoist priest, but if you suddenly want to sell this thing, we have to stop you." While he was thinking, he felt that someone patted him on the shoulder and asked, "What's in it?" Sanwazi was in a state of high tension and did not notice that someone was approaching from behind. He was so scared that he almost peed himself. He almost threw away the evil of the world in his hand. Anyway, he had practiced martial arts since he was a child, so he was able to control himself. Even so, he was still furious. Let's be reasonable. When you're watching porn on a laptop, someone suddenly pats you on the shoulder from behind and asks you what you're watching. In the end, you're so scared that you almost drop the laptop that contains a lot of your youth. Are you angry? Are you angry? Sanwazi was very angry. He suddenly turned around and was about to curse, but when he saw the person behind him, he could not help but open his mouth. When you're watching porn and someone pats you on the shoulder and asks you what you're watching, you almost drop your precious notebook. You become very angry and angrily turn around to scold that person, only to discover that it's your father. How would you react? Although Sun Lang was not Sanwazi's father, in this young man's mind, he was more than his father. Most of the people in the embroidery hall had a feeling of admiration for Sun Lang, which originated from Zhang Jinyuan's admiration and subtle influence for Sun Lang. As Zhang Jinyuan's confidant, Sanwazi was the first to accept Sun Lang's influence. Well, it could be said that he was tortured. He could still clearly remember that night. Fourth uncle was dead drunk. He staggered back with a big smile on his face. Fourth uncle patted his shoulder and said with a big laugh, "Today, I learned 2 words from my teacher. Capitalist. Capitalism. Only capitalism can save the empire." Ugh. In addition to these shocking and crazy words, many of the brilliant ideas and strategically placed strategies obviously came from Swordsman Sunday. From Fourth Uncle's reverence and admiration for Swordsman's son over and over again, Sanwazi was deeply shocked. He had lived for so long, but he had never thought that a person could be so shameless. They used generous rewards to recruit refugees and commoners to work, and then prepare to set up small markets, taverns, tea houses, gambling houses, and even brothels around the factory area. They also bought land to build houses. It seemed to promote the development of the community, economic prosperity, and the commoners were singing praises. But in reality, more than half of the money that the workers earned from the embroidery hall would flow back to Fourth Uncle through the tea houses and gambling houses, and then be paid out as wages. The various products that the workers worked hard to produce would be sold, bringing in a large amount of silver. Therefore, Fourth Uncle used this money to continue to expand production, recruit workers by land, build houses, and build all kinds of consumer places. He repeated this method of making more money, and then the embroidery hall's territory and industry would become bigger and bigger, and the money would also become more and more. Sanwazi, who understood the mystery, felt that his soul was trembling. As for buying newspapers, donating money, and making friends with the government, there was no need to mention it. He felt that his Fourth Uncle's personality had completely rotted. And Hiro-san, who could turn his Fourth Uncle into such a terrible person in such a short time? He felt that he would not be wronged if the imperial court directly killed him. When Fourth Uncle went to visit Swordsman's son, Sanwazi drove the carriage for Fourth Uncle. He had seen Swordsman's son from afar, but Swordsman's son had a strange temperament, so he was not qualified to talk to him. Now, he finally saw Swordsman's son in person. For a moment, his feelings were complicated, and he could not even speak. It was as if he was an evil gang that had suddenly seen a rich man. "You are Zhang Jinyuan's head horse, right?" Sun Lang greeted Sanwazi as if they were close friends. He reached out and took the jar from Sanwazi, who was still in a state of confusion. He squinted his eyes and sniffed carefully, then frowned and said, "Why does it smell gay?" Sanwazi finally reacted. He gasped and said in shock, "Hero-san, you can't do this, you can't do this." Why would Sun Lang pay attention to him? He casually opened the jar's mud seal. Sanwazi's face was pale, and his legs were trembling. He wanted to leave first, but before the horrible smell could rise to the sky, Sun Lang raised his hand and pressed down. The dark green smell was firmly suppressed inside the jar. He smiled proudly at Sanwazi and said, "You asked me why I'm so familiar with it, and how many times I've done it, and I can only say that I have no comment." "I didn't intend to ask that, really." Sun Lang held the jar with one hand and gently fanned the mouth of the jar towards his nostrils with the other hand, causing a small amount of biochemical weapon volatiles to float into his nostrils. His movements were skillful and standard, much better than Lin Jing's anyway. This time, he carefully appraised it. After thinking for a moment, he nodded and said, "It's really gay. This Zhang Jianyuan has really taken this step. However, he's still too young. This jar of love clearly lacks a lot of maturity. It's time to show his true skills." He put the jar on the ground, then took something out of his pocket. Although Sanwazi did not know what Hiro-san was holding in his hand, he still felt his scalp tingle. He weakly protested and said, "Hiro-san, this is big incense head." Sun Lang said gently, "If you continue to talk, I'll press your head into the jar and make it into a pot of lust." Although Sanwazi did not know what it was, he shamefully cowered. His heart was in a mess, and he did not know what Sun Lang wanted to do. But soon, Sanwazi's eyes widened, because he found that Hiro-san seemed to have undergone some changes. Staring at the jar of stinky tofu, he seemed to have an indescribable temperament. If he had to describe it, it would be like the god of craftsmen looking at an imperfect sword, or the god of cookery looking at an imperfect dish. That kind of sigh, regret, and indifference came from absolute confidence in himself. At this time, Sanwazi remembered one thing. This Hiro-san in front of him was the inventor of stinky tofu. At this time, Sun Lang's low voice rang out. "This kind of thing in my eyes is not qualified. Although the intention is important, the skill is also important. Both hands must be grasped, and both hands must be strong. In my opinion, there is still something missing, such as the lack of emptiness." He reached out and poured the whole bottle of essential balm into the jar. His movements were like flowing water, indescribably wonderful and beautiful to the extreme. His every move was without a trace of smoke or fire, as if he was looking up at the starry sky on a beautiful summer night. He held the cute little girl's hand, smiled, and asked her to hand over 450 copper coins, and was prepared to throw her out at any time. He smiled, watching the green liquid merge into the deep pool, and smiled gently. "There is still 70% enthusiasm." Then he fiddled with the gunpowder bag in his hand for a while, and then sank into the jar as well. Sanwazi was already biting his fingers, and looked like he was about to cry. He asked weakly, Hiro-san, is it done?" The ranger smiled gently at him, and then took out a small iron can from his arms at lightning speed. He opened it, poured it, and stirred it in an instant. He could be called a hero among poisoners, and the most important thing is 90% malice. Seeing such a tragic thing happen in front of him, Sanwazi could not help but cover his face and scream silently. It looked like the painting called The Scream. "Don't be afraid, don't be afraid." Sun Lang put the clay seal back, then patted Sanwazi's shoulder and handed the thing back to him. He smiled and said, "Zhang Jianyuan won't do anything to you. I did this. You could just tell him afterwards. What can he do?" Sanwazi still looked sad and said weakly, "Hiro-san, you have a big grudge against this Taoist priest." Sun Lang smiled and said, No, my target is not Taoist priest by Shui. It just so happens that you happen to be here. Can you do me a little favor? If not, I'll stuff your head into it and make it into a pot of strong desire." What did Sanwazi do? He was also very desperate. He could only nod weakly. Good. Sun Lang smiled and said, take this jar and go to Zhang Jianyuan now. It looks like he has already confronted the 3 uninvited guests. What should you say when you go there? Do you know? Sanwazi was very sensible and whispered, I'll pretend that nothing happened. I won't say that you're here, and I won't say that you added something in it. Sun Lang reached out and patted him on the head. He said angrily, what did Zhang Jianyuan teach you? How can you be such a dishonest child? Sanwazi did not dare to fight back. He touched his head pitifully and said with grievance, then what should I say? He raised a finger and showed a meaningful smile. You have to tell the truth. Remember, when you go to Zhang Jianyuan now, remember to look panicked. Remember to whisper to Zhang Jianyuan in front of Taoist priest by Shui and the other 2 people. Let me think, with Qin Hui and one Yuanzhong's insignificant skills, how loud can they hear you whisper? I got it. I'll say it again. Remember the volume and the specific words, and repeat it to me a few times. Just say it like this. Sun Lang thought for a moment and said slowly, President, Hiro-san just came and said that you didn't do a good enough job. Then he put something in this jar and asked me to give it to you. He also asked you to take a good look at it and think about it. Next time, don't make the same mistake. This time, let's forget about it. Don't go to him for the time being. What do you mean? Why are you talking so much nonsense? Read it quickly. Chapter 378. Damn you two. Let go of that Taoist priest. Don't you know he's injured? Taoist priest by Shui and Qin Hui were both stunned when they heard the angry shout. Then, the Taoist priest became vigilant. How could this bastard be so kind? Qin Hui sneered inwardly. You two really do know each other. Zhang Jianyuan walked over quickly, his eyes filled with anger. However, Lord Qin was smart enough to let go of Taoist by Shui before Zhang Jianyuan could say anything. Then, he cupped his hands and said, Are you Zhang Jianyuan, Minister Zhang? Zhang Jianyuan looked Qin Hui up and down. This CEO was from the underworld. She had a pair of sharp eyes and was very good at judging people. Judging from her bearing, behavior, and mysterious calmness, the person in front of him was either rich or noble. He was probably born in an official's family. If it had been the previous embroidery hall's big head Zhang Jianyuan, he would have been scared to death. But now, as a righteous businessman in Mingzhou, who doesn't know that I help the weak and the poor? Even the Lord praised me personally. I'm a man who wants to become a capitalist. I have money, people, and fame. I also have a powerful weapon like the newspaper in my hand. Don't you know that it's more important to prevent the people from talking about me than to prevent the river from flowing? Why should I be afraid? He cupped his hands and bowed in return. Yes. Zhang Jianyuan's behavior made Qin Hui's eyes flash with a strange light. Her heart skipped a beat. I once heard the marshal mention that merchants are great thieves who steal from the country. If they're allowed to grow wild, there will be a day when they will dominate the world through money and benefits. They will treat the world as their money bag. Their methods are steady but deadly. When they become successful, even if the imperial court decides to eliminate them, they will cause turmoil in the world. The price of goods will soar and the people will complain. Therefore, we have to be careful and take precautions. However, we still have to rely on them to run the world and make money. Therefore, we have to use both the carrot and the stick. He looked at Zhang Jianyuan again. This person had no scholarly achievements, no official position, and no military achievements. He only had property, wealth, and fame. This kind of businessman was a fat piece of meat in the eyes of the government. Even if he lived a luxurious life, he still had to live humbly and carefully in front of the country. But he didn't see any cowardice in the eyes of Minister Zhang. This came from confidence. Was it because of his backing? I'm afraid not. Alarm bells suddenly went off in his heart, and a thought flashed through his mind. Zhang Jianyuan was probably the capitalist that the man had mentioned before. Sigh, he was really a meticulous schemer. Even if he died without knowing why, he could predict what would happen a few years later with just a casual sentence from him. It's a pity that His Majesty and the imperial court are deliberately diluting his traces. My words carry little weight. Even if I report the harm done to the merchants, I'm afraid I'll be treated as a joke. After all, which of the imperial court officials and century-old aristocratic families doesn't have 2 or 3 giant merchants seeking refuge? They were still counting on these merchants to make money for them. Why would they kill their own golden hens? I also asked that person if the merchants really did become big enough to shake the country and even commit a major crime of stealing the country. How could it be resolved? The marshal only smiled faintly and said, "Sickles and hammers can be broken." I've thought about these words for a few years and have no clue. For a moment, Zhang Jianyuan and Qin Hui both sank in a deep thought. These two were typical representatives of the new bourgeoisie and the old feudal bureaucrats. Through their rich psychological activities, they set the tone for the conversation that followed, which was not very friendly. Qin Hui was already on guard against Zhang Jianyuan, but he was a mature person of the imperial court. He was very familiar with honeyed words and swords in his heart. Even if his heart was filled with murderous intent, he still appeared to be amiable on the surface. The imperial envoy smiled slightly and said with a sincere expression, "I've long heard of your great name. It's an honor to meet you today." Zhang Jianyuan didn't say anything. He looked at Taoist by Shui and huffed slightly. Qin Hui didn't get angry. Seeing this, he pointed at Taoist by Shui and complained, "This Taoist priest is familiar with Zhang Jianyuan?" He was really rude. When he heard that I wanted to visit Zhang Jianyuan, he said vulgar words and insulted Zhang Jianyuan. He said that you were a heartless profiteer, insulted your character, smeared your business, and barked wildly. I really couldn't stand it anymore. I was filled with righteous indignation and dragged him here for Zhang Jianyuan to deal with. Zhang Jianyuan smiled sinisterly and glanced at Taoist by Shui. Taoist by Shui saw that he had fallen into the tiger's den and decided to throw caution to the wind. He straightened his neck and said, "What are you looking at?" The Taoist priest was about to have shit all over his head. He was even calmer than before. He thought, "Today, I've fallen into the hands of this bastard. I'm afraid it's going to be bad. But this Qin guy is really rude. I must teach him a lesson." I got it. Although this bastard Zhang Jianyuan is vicious, he only admires Master Sunday. After all, he's a hopeless bastard in this life. Naturally, he admires Master Sun, an upright moral role model. This Qin guy intended to be rude to Master Sunday. Although Zhang Jianyuan is heartless, he can't ignore this matter. He was thinking about how to disclose this matter to Zhang Jianyuan when he heard the CEO waving his hand. "Thank you for your hospitality. I'll take him. What else do you want?" This was a little rude. Wan Yuanzhong, who had been listening from the side, became angry when he heard this. He didn't know why, but he was inexplicably unhappy with Zhang Jianyuan. So he said, "How dare you? Do you know that in front of you?" Qin Hui reached out and interrupted Wan Yuanzhong. He smiled and said, "To be honest, there are 2 reasons why I'm here today. First, when I first came to Mingzhou, I heard that there was a righteous and generous official here. After hearing about your deeds, I was very impressed and took the liberty to meet you. I hope you won't abandon me. As for the second reason, I have something to ask of you." When Taoist by Shui heard this, he thought that this person must be Master Sun. So he secretly winked at Zhang Jianyuan, reminding him to be careful. Zhang Jianyuan had fought with this Taoist priest for more than 10 rounds before, fighting with wisdom and courage. It was easy for him to notice the subtle changes on Taoist by Shui's face. Seeing this, he felt a chill in his heart. Without asking for details, he cupped his hands and said, "Since you've come from afar, you're my guest. Please come in, come in." He welcomed them in. Now the embroidery hall had completely become the Embroidery Hall Food Company Limited, and it was no longer the secret meeting place of the underworld. However, the structure and layout were still the same. Qin Hui and Wan Yuanzhong were both discerning people. When they saw that the headquarters of the Embroidery Hall was very orderly, they were secretly shocked and became more vigilant against Zhang Jianyuan. When they came to a reception hall, Zhang Jianyuan looked around a few times as if he was waiting for someone to appear. However, there was no one, so he had to invite them to sit down first. Then, he chatted with Qin Hui and introduced himself. The two of them began to pretend to be polite to each other. Zhang Jinyuan thought, although Taoist by Shui is a bastard, he won't join hand with outsiders to deal with me. He just winked at me, obviously telling me that they don't have good intentions and that I should be careful. However, there are too many people here, so it's not good to ask him what's going on. What is Qin Hui doing here? He thought for a while and went through the people who might be hostile to him recently. Recently, I've hugged His Excellency's thigh, helped the poor, and took the opportunity to build momentum. It's about time. If there's anyone who's still hostile to me, it must be my business competitors. Qin Hui's movements are noble, so I'm afraid she's not a businessman. Could it be that some ignorant yaman was persuaded by their subordinates and came to make trouble for me? Qin Hui was also thinking secretly. I came to find Zhang Jinyuan to inquire about the female cat burglar, Qin Yu, so that I can find a decisive flaw in Zhao Feihuang's flawless lie. But now, it seems that this matter is not so simple. This Taoist by Shui actually knows Zhang Jinyuan, so I'm afraid there's more to it. I have to slowly figure it out. So where should I start? As expected, it was better to start with his family's stinky tofu. Going straight to the point wouldn't be nice. Thus, he cupped his hands and said with a smile, I've long heard that Embroidery Hall's stinky tofu is popular in Mingzhou. Everyone thinks it's a delicacy. I've just arrived in Mingzhou a few days ago and haven't had such good luck. I wonder if Squire Zhang is willing to fulfill my wish and let me taste it? As Qin Hui said this, she smiled inwardly. I'll start with the stinky tofu that he's most proud of, and then slowly make him talk. When Zhang Jinyuan heard this, a cold light flashed in his eyes. Ha, fulfill my wish. Just arrived in Mingzhou? Who are you trying to fool? Sure enough, he's coveting the recipe of the stinky tofu and came to take it by force. President Zhang was thinking about how to get rid of this person when he suddenly heard hurried footsteps. He turned around and saw San Wazi holding a black jar and walking out from the back hall. When Taoist by Shui saw this, his face turned green, and he looked at Zhang Jinyuan with a murderous gaze. Zhang Jinyuan shouted in his heart, Oh no! Sure enough, what the president was worried about happened. Qin Hui's eyes lit up. She stood up and said with a smile, Is this the stinky tofu? Squire Zhang is really hospitable. Big Incense Head complained his heart. He can't King eat it. This thing was originally for Bai Shui, who knew how many special ingredients were added to it. This Taoist Bai Shui had been through hundreds of battles and had rough skin and thick flesh. He also knew some Taoist spells. He would at most feel uncomfortable for a while after eating it. However, ordinary people couldn't eat it. He was very anxious and didn't know how to refuse Qin Hui. After all, he didn't know the purpose of this noble lady's visit. It was very likely that she had come for the recipe of the stinky tofu. If he ate this kind of unclean thing, he would definitely have a reason to vomit and have diarrhea. Moreover, he wouldn't be in the right either. Even the prefect wouldn't be able to say anything. Therefore, he looked stiff and laughed dryly. This is just a trial. If Brother Qin is interested, I'll send someone to pick a few jars of the best quality. Before Qin Hui could say anything, the young man holding the jar ran to Zhang Jinyuan's side in a panic and whispered in his ear. This time, the imperial envoy came for another purpose. His curiosity and attention were unprecedentedly strong. Although he didn't say anything, he had already raised his power to the peak and listened attentively. Fortunately, although the young man was whispering, he didn't have much vigilance. Although his voice was very low, it was still heard by Qin Hui. Those few words in the imperial envoy's ears were like thunder from the ninth heaven. President, Master Sun just came and said that you didn't do a good enough job. Then he stuffed something in this jar and asked me to give it to you. He also asked you to take a good look and think about it. Don't make the same mistake next time. Let's forget about this matter first. Don't look for him for the time being. Master Sunday didn't do a good enough job. Stuff something in. Take a good look and think about it. Don't make the same mistake. Don't look for him for the time being. Qin Hui felt that he had fallen into an ice cave. He almost immediately wanted to get up and chase to the back hall, to find traces of Master Sunday. He roared loudly in his heart. He was here. That guy surnamed Sun just came. Was this a coincidence or on purpose? Why was he everywhere? In the end, he suppressed the urge to immediately chase after him. Not to mention that this was the embroidery hall. If he rashly did such a thing, he was afraid that it would cause a strong backlash from Zhang Jinyuan. Secondly, he looked at the jar in Sanwazi's hand. There was something stuffed in it. The imperial envoy paid close attention to Zhang Jinyuan's expression. As expected, after hearing these words, Zhang Yuanwei, without any surprise, revealed an expression of shock. He nodded his head and waved his hand as if nothing had happened. Since it is like this, take this thing away first. How could Qin Hui let him do as he wished? He immediately said in a loud voice, What is so precious about this jar of stinky tofu that you can't even bear to show it to others? Zhang Jianyuan was anxious in his heart. He casually cupped his hands and said, Brother Qin, this jar of stinky tofu is just a prototype. I'm not sure if it can be eaten. If Brother Qin wants to eat it, Qin Hui simply patted his chest with enthusiasm. I won't hide it for Brother Zhang. In my life, I've only been greedy for food. Since it's a prototype, someone must taste it. Why can't it be me? What an honor it is to be able to taste stinky tofu for Brother Zhang. Brother Zhang, you will not even give me this face, right? Zhang Jianyuan was a little impatient. He made up his mind. Eat it. I'll let you smell it. If you still dare to eat it, then don't blame me. He directly opened the mud seal and handed it to Qin Hui. Here, if Brother Qin can stand this smell. Huh? He sniffed it and felt that something was wrong. He heard Qin Hui exclaim, Smell? I thought the stinky tofu was stained with the word stinky, so the smell wouldn't be good. Isn't it quite nice? This trace of refreshing coolness, this leisurely fragrance, could it be the smell of mint and camphor? How is this possible? When I put the jar in, I had to wrap a few layers of cotton gauze around my nose. He looked at Sanwazi in surprise, and Sanwazi turned his head to the side with a complicated expression. Then, Zhang Jinyuan stuck his head out and looked into the jar. There was a faint layer of green light inside, and it was not as gloomy as before. In addition, this jar of stinky tofu seemed to have been stirred, but he had never seen such a perfect stirring result. Could it be? At this time, Taoist by Shui also came over and said in surprise, This smell is not right. Why are you so kind? Now is the time. A cold light flashed in Zhang Jinyuan's eyes. He directly picked up the teacup next to him, scooped out some stinky tofu at lightning speed, and poured it into Taoist by Shui's mouth. Taoist by Shui was stunned as if he had been struck by lightning. He was stunned and could not speak for a long time. Zhang Jianyuan was surprised and doubtful. How was the taste? Taoist by Shui said bitterly, I am touched. This is the best stinky tofu you have ever made. The smooth tofu and the delicious soup are a perfect combination of heaven and earth, embracing each other in the most passionate way. The fragrance of mint and the richness of the soup are harmonious, and the contradiction is completed in this small bowl of stinky tofu. Mankind has once again received a gift from nature. This is the best stinky tofu in the universe. Then why are you crying? Taoist by Shui sobbed and said, I just thought of my father who passed away when I was young. When I thought that he would never have the chance to taste such delicious food, I felt so sad that I couldn't help myself. Zhang Jianyuan nodded with a confused face. He looked at the jar in his hand again, as if he was hesitating about something. Now is the time. Taoist by Shui suddenly grabbed the teacup next to him, scooped out stinky tofu, and poured it into Zhang Jianyuan's mouth. His actions were as fast as lightning. Zhang Jianyuan was stunned for a moment, and then he covered his face. Big drops of tears fell through the gaps between his fingers. Men did not cry easily, but only when they were deeply hurt. Taoist by Shui sighed and said, Is it delicious? Why are you crying? Zhang Jianyuan covered his face and sobbed. Your father died so tragically. The two of them were speechless for a while. Now is the time. Suddenly, Qin Hui and Wan Yuanzhong exploded. One of them kicked over the table, and the other took the jar in Zhang Jinyuan's hand, and then ran away. Chapter 379. Logically speaking, all of this happened too quickly. Moreover, it was too mysterious. The explosive taste in his mouth was still fermenting and spreading, as if his entire soul had been greatly shocked. But then, something even more shocking happened. Both Zhang Jianyuan and Daoist by Shui were stunned. They watched Qin Hui and one Yuanzhong snatch the jar of galaxy stinky tofu and then run away. Their mouths were wide open and their faces were full of shock. For a moment, there was only one sentence left in their minds. The Queen of Heaven. Someone is stealing shit. But then, Zhang Jianyuan came back to his senses. He jumped up and cursed. Damn it! How dare they steal it from me? Mother of Asterisker, my esteemed teacher, even left something inside. I must get it back. Senwazi let out an ah and came back to his senses. The poor young man found that his back was soaked in sweat unknowingly. His heart was beating wildly, and his heart was trembling with fear. He shouted loudly in his heart, "Too scary, hero-son is too scary. He's not human. Ah!" He finally understood what Sun Lang had asked him to say. Zhang Jianyuan was furious. He took a dozen steps and threw a vase on the left side of the flower hall to the side, revealing the button inside. He pressed it hard, and then a bell rang continuously in the embroidery hall. A moment later, two burly men rushed in and saluted. President. President Zhang roared. Gather the security department. Catch up with those two thieves. Get that jar of stinky tofu back for me. The two security chiefs were stunned for a moment, then shouted, yes. Immediately, the two of them rushed out of the reception hall and into the courtyard. They shouted loudly, ring the alarm, ring the gong, gather the umbrella guards, chase the thieves. Dense footsteps could be heard from all over the embroidery hall. Men with weapons in their hands constantly rushed out of the courtyard under the lead of the two leaders. These people were well-trained and were very extraordinary. They were even equipped with large wolfhounds, crossbows, and even firearms. With the wolfhounds leading the way, they swarmed out of the courtyard. Zhang Jianyuan shouted from behind, remember to ask the villagers around to help with the search. Do you still remember what I taught you before? The security guards shouted in unison, let our enemies fall into the sea of people's war. President Zhang was satisfied. He suppressed his anger and turned back to the parlor. He was about to ask Senwazi about the specific situation, but when he looked up, he was slightly startled. He frowned and said, Senwazi, why are you sweating so much? Uncle. Senwazi wiped his sweat and said weakly, I think we don't need to chase anymore. Zhang Jianyuan asked curiously, why? My teacher left something inside for me to ponder over. Before he could finish his sentence, he heard a sudden gust of wind beside him. Caught off guard, he was hit on the head. Then he heard White Snow Taoist yell, bastard, dirty bastard, B*TCH, bastard, I'll fight it out with you. Zhang Jianyuan's eyes instantly sharpened. He threw a backhand punch at Taoist White Snow's head, causing the Taoist to stagger back. Zhang Jianyuan laughed and said, Oxnose, how does my special stinky tofu taste? How is it? Do you want me to make more for you and burn it for your father? Taoist White Snow suddenly sneered. A trace of determination flashed in his eyes. He stroked his beard and said, what are you laughing at? You also ate shit. Even though he knew that it wasn't feces, he couldn't help but recall the horrifying color and smell of the stinky tofu. The mint fragrance mixed with the rancid odor of the stinky tofu, tormenting his taste buds and mouth. This feeling was suppressed by his anger, and now that Taoist priest White Snow mentioned it again, it instantly reminded him of the fear he felt back then. Zhang Jianyuan wanted to say something, but his face turned green. He clutched his stomach and vomited. Blurg, Taoist White Snow looked up to the sky and laughed wildly. Ha ha, ha ha ha. Even if you're as cunning as a ghost, in the end, you still drank the water that you wash your feet with. Good and evil will be rewarded. Look up if you don't believe it. Surname Zhang. The shit you made, how does it taste? Ha ha ha. But he stopped there. The pungent smell of Zhang Jiyuan's vomit rushed into Taoist White Snow's nostrils. The two completed the emotional resonance and physiological synchronization evolution. Taoist White Snow felt a stream of turbid qi rushing from his Yongquan acupoint to his brain palace. His stomach was churning, and he vomited. Ugh. The scene was too tragic, so much so that Sanwazi was frightened and took a few steps back. His legs were trembling. At this time, he also felt that he was in a very difficult situation. The ingredients in the jar were added by Master Sun, and those words were also taught by Master Sunday. Obviously, the two idiots took away the stinky tofu, which was the result that Master Sun wanted. Then, would the pursuit of the security team disrupt Master Sun's plan? He wanted to tell Fourth Uncle the truth, but Fourth Uncle was vomiting happily. How could he listen to him? Sanwazi felt very desperate. He wanted to chase after them himself, but first, he was not qualified enough to command the security team. Second, he was afraid that Fourth Uncle and Taoist White Snow would vomit to death in the flower hall or drown in their own vomit. Oh, he could not bear to think of this scene. On one side, Zhang Jinyuan and Taoist White Snow were in love and almost died together. On the other side, the two thieves who succeeded in the robbery were happily running away. Qin Hui was indeed a hero among the officials. He flipped the table and ran away in an instant. Before he left, he did not forget to pick up the mud seal on the ground. Now he covered the jar again and laughed in the wind. Ha ha ha, Zhang Jinyuan. Even if you were a cunning ghost, you still drank the water that I washed my feet with. Continue acting, you guys continue acting. Although Wan Yuanzhong had received Qin Hui's signal and accompanied Shangwan Liuli to do a big job, he did not understand the mystery. Although he was running at this time, he was basically in a state of confusion. Hearing Shangwan Liuli's words, he shouted, "Master, what are we doing? Why are we snatching this thing?" Qin Hui laughed loudly and patted the jar in his hand. Of course, it's because there's a big surprise hidden inside. Wan Yuanzhong shouted, "What surprise?" The imperial envoy wanted to explain, but when he thought of what had happened before, he could not help but laugh loudly. The flag bearer was very confused and scratched his head. "Why are you laughing, master?" Qin Hui proudly said, "I'm laughing at Zhang Jinyuan's lack of strategy and Taoist White Snow's lack of wisdom. Look at the two of them. They acted so well just now. Didn't they just want to act like this stinky tofu is really disgusting to the extreme and make me retreat? Humph. They didn't know that I had already heard their conversation and seen through their tricks. I already knew that there was a big secret hidden in this stinky tofu. So how could I retreat because of this? So I beat them at their own game and suddenly attacked, catching them off guard." Wan Yuanzhong still did not understand. After all, his martial arts were not as good as Qin Hui's. Just now, he was also not on guard and did not hear Sanwazi's whispers, so he could still see the problem from a more objective point of view. Master, is this not a problem? Maybe this is just a jar of ordinary stinky tofu. After we do this, if we still don't get anything, then Zhang Jinyuan's clues will be cut off. In the future, if we come to ask him for information, I'm afraid." Hearing this, Qin Hui coldly snorted. "Clues? Umph. Zhang Jinyuan's clues have already been cut off. He is also that person surnamed Sun's lackey. So how could he provide us with any clues? So at the first moment, I gave up all my fantasies and directly chose to rob him." Wan Yuanzhong was shocked. There's such a thing. I saw him flirting with that Taoist priest by Shui and felt that there was a conspiracy. I didn't expect it to be so. Just as Qin Hui was about to speak again, he suddenly heard a shout from behind. A few fireworks whooshed into the sky and exploded, creating a deafening explosion. They looked from afar and saw a few men jump onto the roof, holding a strange metal barrel that looked like a horn in their hands. They shouted as they ran, and they could faintly hear them. "Don't go, the stinky tofu thief." As a dignified imperial envoy, he was called a thief, and he was actually doing the deed of a thief. This was really embarrassing. Wan Yuanzhong's face was a bit hot, but Qin Hui was completely unaware. He looked behind him and smiled. The enemy is already like a cornered dog jumping over a wall. They have exhausted all their tricks. Brother Yuanzhong, we should retreat. As long as we escape, we will win this round." Thus, the two of them looked at each other, nodded, and began to madly run again. Behind them came the sound of a boiling cauldron of voices and fierce barking of dogs. It was obvious that a large group of people was madly chasing after them. However, there were no villagers holding pitchforks or filled with righteous indignation. This made the two of them breathe a sigh of relief. Qin Hui laughed and said, "The common people are greedy and do not know justice." This Zhang Jinyuan thought that by throwing some money and providing some work, he would be able to gather the people's hearts when he encountered a problem. He is really too naive. He never understood the nature of this group of common people. Before he finished speaking, the men behind him said in unison, "Official Zhang's orders. Those who report the movements of the thieves will be rewarded with 200 copper coins each. Those who participate in surrounding the thieves will be rewarded with 500 copper coins each. Those who use stones to hit the thieves will be rewarded with 1 tael of silver each time they hit the thieves. Those who fight the thieves in close combat will be rewarded with 5 taels of silver each. Those who beat up the thieves will be rewarded with 10 taels of silver each. Those who catch these 2 thieves will be rewarded with 50 taels of silver each. The official is a man of his word and never goes back on his words. The shining silver is waiting for you to come and get it." Qin Hui was shocked when she heard this. She said, "There's an expert in embroidery hall." Wan Yuanzhong said loudly, "Sir, please don't say too much." Sure enough, the enthusiasm of the people was instantly aroused. For a moment, there were countless pairs of restless eyes in the streets and alleys. For the sake of official Zhang, for the sake of embroidery hall, and for the sake of a better life, they aimed their anger at the bad people who dared to destroy the stability and harmony of society. Knives were unsheathed, guns were polished, and someone shouted, "Kill these 2 dogs." Then, like locusts, stones fell with the momentum of a torrential downpour. Young and strong men rushed out with hatchets and pitchforks. Some strong and vigorous women were not to be outdone and also rushed out with their household utensils. Even old men wanted to earn the 200 copper coins. Trembling, they climbed to the roof and looked into the distance, tracking the traces of the thieves. These old men, who had lived here for their whole lives, knew the terrain like the back of their hands. The streets and alleys in this area extended in all directions, and it was very easy to get lost, let alone point out the direction. However, in the eyes of these old men, everything was so clear. They only needed to shout, "The thieves ran to the back of Zhang Assie's house," or something like that, and everyone would understand. Unfortunately, these 2 thieves were not petty thieves. They were warriors who knew martial arts. Qin Hui had even retired from the Great War of Heaven's origin. She had even broken through the extraterrestrial demon's army. Why would she be afraid of this? Although the pursuers were full of vigor, they still lacked a unified command after all. Moreover, the 2 of them were fleeing towards the shadows. With just a turn to the east and a slip to the west, they actually managed to escape. Wan Yuanzhong followed closely behind his master's footsteps and rushed all the way. After an unknown period of time, he saw Qin Hui stop. He let out a long breath and turned his head to look back. The pursuers behind him had gone far away. It took a lot of effort to get rid of these unruly people. Wan Yuanzhong relaxed his tense body and said slowly, "It was really a good run. Sir, what should we do next?" Qin Hui turned around. Although she looked a little tired, she could not hide her excitement. She weighed the jar in her hand and said with a smile, "Next, it's time to find out the answer." She opened the mud seal and looked inside. It was green and lush. Qin Hui thought of the legend of stinky tofu that was popular in Mingzhou and wanted to taste it. However, the previous performance of Taoist white snow and Zhang Jinyuan was still vivid in her mind, which made her feel very apprehensive. She suppressed the impulse to seek death and said thoughtfully, "The servant said that Master Sun put something in it and asked Zhang Jinyuan to think about it carefully. Therefore, it must be some kind of instruction or admonishment. Otherwise, Zhang Jinyuan would not be so serious." As for why he put it in the jar, it might be because it is too conspicuous. What is it? She looked inside again, but she really did not have the courage to put her hand in. She looked around and could not find any tools to fish out the thing. There is no other way. Just drop it on the ground and check it, or just smash the jar. Brother Yuanzhong, please step back a little. For some reason, when Yuanzhong suddenly felt that something was wrong and whispered, "Sir, it is better to be careful." Qin Hui was proud of today's decisive killing and was in a good mood. She smiled and said, "Since the pursuers are gone, there is no threat. Today, I robbed Master's son, and today, Zhang Jianyuan was caught unprepared by me. Both of them failed. What should I be careful of? Be careful that the jar will explode by itself." Brother Yuanzhong, don't look at me like that. I'm a little scared. Sir, don't panic, don't panic. I have a plan. You can throw the jar directly into the air, and then we will immediately retreat to a safe place. When the jar falls to the ground and breaks, if nothing happens, we will go and check it. What do you think? I think it will work. Chapter 380. You still haven't found him? In Zhongyi Tower, Hu Shouxin paced back and forth. He turned around and said anxiously, "What's going on? How do we lose track of this person?" A paladin stood in front of him with his head lowered and a face full of shame. "I'm incompetent. Please punish me." Hu Shouxin waved his hand. "First, tell me the cause and effect of this matter in detail." The paladin cupped his fists and said, "Yes, I was ordered by you to secretly protect the Imperial Envoy. Today, the Imperial Envoy and Sir Wan Yuanzhong were strolling along Qinglan Street when they suddenly met a Taoist priest. The few people behind them got into a fight. I was afraid that the Imperial Envoy would find out. I also saw that there was no danger, so I didn't go forward." Hu Shouxin frowned. He felt that the matter was not simple. He muttered to himself for a moment and slowly said, "Is that Taoist priest's hair and beard fluttering in the wind and has the air of an immortal, but when he speaks, he has an aggressive and harsh attitude that makes people want to punch him?" The paladin raised his head in surprise. "How did you know?" Although I couldn't hear what they were talking about, when I saw the Taoist priest's manner of speaking, I wanted to hit him. Hu Shouxin snorted, scaring the paladin into immediately lowering his head and continuing to report obediently. I followed them all the way and saw the Imperial Envoy and Sir Wan holding the Taoist priest hostage. They took him all the way to Xing Ping Square, which is the territory of Embroidery Hall. Ever since Embroidery Hall washed their hands of gold and started selling stinky tofu, the strength of Embroidery Hall, which has been reorganized, has increased instead of decreased. They have also won over the hearts of the people and built Xing Ping Square like a water bucket. I didn't dare to make a decision on my own and didn't want to expose my identity, so I could only follow them secretly. After hearing this, Old Hu's brows were tightly knitted together. Taoist White Snow and Zhang Jianyuan were undoubtedly Sun Lang's lackeys. Little brother Qin had been caught between these two people. Sun Lang was definitely behind all of this. From the looks of it, little brother Qin, he had a bad feeling in his heart, but he still said, "Continue." I observed from afar and saw Zhang Jianyuan welcome the Imperial Envoy and the other two into the Embroidery Hall. The Embroidery Hall was even more heavily guarded and well-arranged. If I rashly barged in and was discovered, I was afraid that it would cause friction or even confrontation between the Embroidery Hall and the Rangers Guild. I also thought that the Embroidery Hall was already a well-known brand in Mingzhou City. Even if something happened, Zhang Jianyuan would not be able to escape. The Rangers said in shame, so I waited outside for the Imperial Envoy to come out. Could it be that Zhang Jianyuan had received Sun Lang's instructions and had 500 executioners lying in ambush in the hall and had already chopped Brother Qin into a pile of minced meat by smashing a cup as a signal? Hu Shouxin said in shock. He never came out again. The ranger was even more ashamed, as if there was something difficult to say. He hesitated for a moment, then said, "He came out, and he was chased out by someone. I waited outside for a while and saw the Imperial Envoy and Sir Wan carrying a jar and running away. They raised their heads to the sky and laughed wildly, as if they had done something extremely proud. Then the embroidery hall was in an uproar, and a large group of people holding weapons and leading fierce dogs madly chased after them. They chased the imperial envoy all over the place. Old Who almost thought that he had misheard. What? You mean? The ranger nodded heavily. As a ranger under Old Who, he had received a lot of patriotic education. The beautiful qualities of being loyal to the monarch and patriotic were engraved in his bones. He had a natural reverence and longing for imperial power and imperial envoys. When he was young, he had heard plays. In them, the imperial envoys were all people under the emperor's orders to punish treacherous officials. They could be said to be unyielding and unyielding, with a noble spirit that existed forever. How? How could Serene actually, as a simple and honest patriot, he expressed that he could not accept the imperial envoy's actions? The ranger gritted his teeth and honestly recounted, "It is very clear that the imperial envoy stole something very important from the embroidery hall, thus causing the embroidery hall to fly into a rage. They even gathered the common people of Ping Square to surround and intercept." Shoshin opened his mouth wide. He even suspected that the ranger in front of him was a fake subordinate. He stammered, "Say, what did Brother Chin steal?" From the outside, it looked like a black jar. The ranger was about to cry, and his voice was trembling. But from the shouts of the embroidery hall members and the cries of the common people, it could be a jar of stinky tofu. Speaking of this, he could not bear to continue. What was all this? The imperial envoy actually ran to the embroidery hall and stole a jar of stinky tofu. Shoshin blinked. For a moment, his emotions were complicated. He even wanted to write a letter to the imperial court to remove Qin Hui's name from the list of heroes of Tianyuan. How embarrassing. For a moment, he was both angry and amused. He continued to ask, and then the ranger sighed. The imperial envoy's ability to hide and hide is truly amazing. Turning east and west with Sir Wan, you actually avoided the encirclement and interception of Ping Square. I wanted to go and provide support, but at that time, Ping Square was a boiling cauldron of voices. Men, women, old, and young all went out to surround the two imperial envoys. The key problem was that they did not know what the two of them looked like. Suddenly encountering a stranger like me, if they mistook me for the imperial envoy, then Shoshin nodded his head in understanding. After thinking for a moment, he slowly said, "This is not your fault." Who asked him to sigh? "So, you still haven't found them?" The ranger nodded his head in shame. Ping Square is a place where the poor gather. The buildings are low and have been heavily modified. Small alleys and secret passages lead in all directions. I really don't know the way, let alone find the imperial envoy. Thus, I could only leave a few comrades to continue searching while I came to report to the association head, Shoshin sank into deep thought. At first, when he heard this, his shock and disbelief gradually faded away. He slowly calmed down and began to think carefully about this matter. After asking his subordinate for a few more details, he held his chin and began to think. Brother Chin knows the big picture and does things steadily. Why would he run to the embroidery hall to steal a jar of stinky tofu? Furthermore, if it was only a jar of stinky tofu, the embroidery hall would not have put on such a big show. Not only did they send out all their forces, they even mobilized the people of Ping Square to intercept them. It was clear that there was an important secret hidden in this jar of stinky tofu. Then the question came. Since it was an important secret, why was it hidden in the stinky tofu? There was also Sun Lang. Did he play an extremely dishonorable role in this? In other words, this matter. Shoshin's expression suddenly changed. This matter seemed to have no clues, but if the culprit and mastermind behind the scenes were assumed to be Sun Lang, then the matter seemed to be very clear. Although he didn't know whether or not this was done by that little bastard, he had no other clues. He could only try everything he could for once. In other words, assuming that Sun Lang was involved in this matter and had been paying attention the entire time, the secret in the jar of stinky tofu also had a direct interest in him, this possibility could be eliminated. If the secret in that jar of stinky tofu was really so important, then with that little bastard Sun Lang's temperament, he would definitely secretly stretch out his leg and trip Brother Chin. Then he would calmly take the jar and float away, leaving Brother Chin, who was dizzy and didn't know what had happened, where he was. Then he would let the group of people and the members of the embroidery hall surround him, arrest him, and humiliate him. He would definitely do that. So, in other words, Sun Lang was happy to see Brother Chin snatch the jar. Then what did he want to do? What kind of tricks could he play with this jar of stinky tofu? Now wait, in an instant, Hu Shoshin thought of a possibility. His expression became incomparably sorrowful, with a trace of melancholy in his grief. Although it was only one of the possibilities, although this speculation was arbitrary and lacked evidence. But why? Why did he feel that this possibility was the most likely? In an instant, Hu Huisho seemed to have aged a lot. He said in a low voice, "Send some people to search around Xingping Square. Ask people if there was an explosion, a foul smell, or if they saw two people who fell into a cesspool." The paladin blinked. Go." Hu Shoshin waved his hand and said in a very calm tone, "By the way, take a few dogs and search along the river." The paladin was confused, but he still followed the order. Hu Shoshin stayed in the room. Suddenly, he sighed heavily and punched the wall fiercely. "Sun Lang, have you played enough?" The window was open from the outside. Sun Lang nimbly jumped in and sat on the windowsill. He looked at Hu Shoshin with a smile. Stick, who coldly stared at this little bastard. After a long while, he slowly said, "Is it fun?" Hearing this, Sun Lang rolled on the ground and laughed loudly. He punched the ground hard. 2 3 3 3 3 3 3 3 3 3 3 3. I'm dying of laughter. I'm dying of laughter. He laughed for a while and pointed at Hu Shoshin. He took a deep breath and said with a smile, "You don't know, these two idiots. Could it be that they have become stupid from studying? In the past 2 years, they haven't made any progress at all. Even I feel anxious for them. Hey, let me tell you, they actually decided to throw the jar into the air and then retreat, letting the jar fall to the ground. Hey, is Yo Chao Chin stupid? Doesn't he know that nuclear weapons are detonated in the air?" He laughed until he was rolling on the ground. He was almost cramping from laughing. The most important thing is, can't these two idiots throw the jar against the wall? They could have thrown it far away, but why did they have to throw it into the air? F***CK, the stinky tofu flying in the air is like a live target. If I don't take a shot at it, I'll be letting down my 10 years of CF. Hu Shoshin still coldly stared at him. So, you're having fun? You've achieved your goal? You've made Brother Chin into that state. Are you finally satisfied? Sun Lang had also laughed enough. He sat up straight and crossed his legs on the ground. He raised his head to look at Hu Shoshin and said with a smile, "I didn't plan this on purpose. It was just a coincidence. Let me tell you, if I didn't run into it by chance, I wouldn't even know about this." Old Hu coldly said, "Keep making things up." Sun Lang didn't mind. He waved his hand and said, "Besides, he brought this upon himself. He's an imperial envoy. Why did he run off to find a stinky tofu capitalist? Did he want to get acquainted with a famous philanthropist? Bah, Marquis Jingon Fu's job is about to cook his butt, and he still has the mind to do this kind of thing?" Hu Shoshin faintly said, "Oh." Then what does he want to do? Sun Lang raised his eyebrows. Chin Hui doesn't have good intentions. The Marquis Fu's matter won't be left at that. No matter what he does, he definitely has a goal. What kind of connection could Zhang Jianyuan have with the demon tool? I've thought about it, and it could only be that female flying thief, Qin Yu. The problem is that as a precaution, Qin Yu had already been sent to another province to lie low. The records in the Yamen were also covered up with the spring and autumn annals, concealing Qin Yu's origins and her relationship with Embroidery Hall. Qin Hui only flipped through the records and wouldn't know about this matter. Old Hu's voice was still very cold. "So," Sun Lang smiled and said, "So, in the Yamen of Mingzhou, there must be someone in the know who leaked the information to him. As for who leaked the information, I don't care. The world is bustling, and everyone moves for profit. As an imperial envoy, it's too easy to get an official to leak some insignificant information. He jumped up, and a cold smile appeared on his lips. The important thing is, since Qin Hui already reached an agreement with you and young Miss Zhao, why would he still investigate Qin Yu behind your back? Qin Yu is the key to the matter of the demon tool. Her attitude and confession can directly determine whether the case of armed criminals attacking the Marquis Fu is true or not. From there, it could determine whether the Marquis Jinggan Fu is filled with loyal soldiers or traitors. At this crucial time, he still secretly went to investigate this matter behind your back. Don't you want to ask the reason? Hu Shouxin calmly said. This is all your conjecture. Perhaps he really did go to Embroidery Hall to visit Zhang Jinyuan because he felt that the matter of the imperial envoy was already set in stone, so he wanted to relax. Your conjecture about his actions is built on the basis of Qin Hui doesn't have good intentions. Using a predetermined evil standpoint to deduce his actions, there is no actual evidence, so it's not enough to gain my trust. Sun Lang seemed to have already predicted that Hu Shouxin would say this. He calmly said, Then what about the matter with Daoist Bai Shui? Even Daoist Bai Shui could see that Qin Hui is currently investigating me. Hu Shouxin coldly said, Wasn't this the bait that you took the initiative to give him? Sun Lang calmly said, If he doesn't want to eat, it's useless no matter how much bait I put. Humans are not fish. Fish are creatures without intelligence. They are muddle-headed and only live for the sake of survival and reproduction. When they see food, they will go up and swallow it, so they will be caught by anglers. But humans are not fish. Humans have intelligence. They understand good and evil, know when to stop, and know when to advance and when to retreat. He took 2 steps forward and looked directly into Hu Shouxin's eyes. He calmly said, So, if he takes the bait, I will tear him apart alive. Hu Shouxin slowly said, He won't. I won't let this kind of thing happen. Then we'll wait and see. Old Hu, I will always be watching him and will always be watching you. Sun Lang retreated a few steps. He turned and pushed open the window, leaving behind only one sentence. Ma Miao disappeared into the air. Also, don't do anything stupid. Chapter 381. In the evening, the ranger who had been sent out finally came back to report that the person had been found. However, Old Hu noticed from the other party's hesitant tone and forceful expression that something bad had happened after all. His expression was complicated as he slowly said, Have you packed up? The ranger bowed his head and said, Yes, I found 2 sets of new clothes, boiled several large buckets of hot water, and tossed back and forth more than a dozen times. It's clean, almost clean. Old Hu sighed and said, Let's go. Come with me to greet Brother Qin. He followed the ranger downstairs and walked along the stairs to the backyard of the Zhomi building. Coming out of the small door of the backyard, 2 palanquins came in front of them. From the faint smell of mystery and the subtle expressions of the palanquins who served as the palanquins, it was obvious who the guests inside were. The palanquins stopped, and the palanquins moved aside with relief. The curtain of the palanquin opened, revealing Qin Hui's pale face. He was still muttering, I'm so stupid, really. I knew that the jar would explode, but I still held it in my hand and didn't throw it out. I could have thrown it on the ground or the wall. Why did I have to throw it in the air? No matter how alert and vigilant he was in his heart, Hu Shouxin looked at Qin Hui's tragic appearance and couldn't help but feel sad. Qin Hui's appearance at this time was a pitiful epitome of the people who had been secretly tortured by a beast during the Tianyuan War. He couldn't help but think of those people who had also suffered from the claws of Sun Lang before. He sighed and said, Brother, you have suffered. When Qin Hui heard this voice, he raised his head as if he had been electrocuted, and his empty eyes slowly focused. He struggled to say, Brother Hu? Old Hu nodded vigorously. Hey, brother, I'm here. Your brother is here. Qin Hui stood up shakily and stumbled towards Hu Shouxin, shouting, Brother! Before Hu Shouxin could speak, he felt a trace of Haoshiko haki rushing towards him. making his body shake, so Old Hu instinctively took 2 steps back. Qin Hui noticed Old Hu's movements and stopped, his expression desperate and helpless. "Brother, do you also dislike this little brother? Dislike this little brother's body for being dirty? Why do your words sound so awkward?" Hu Shouxin was helpless. He could only pinch his nose and say, "Little brother, you must be joking. We've killed our way through mountains of corpses and seas of blood. How could I dislike you?" Qin Hui was relieved. She ran a few steps forward and hugged Hu Shouxin tightly. Then she burst into tears. Brother, why is the water in Mingzhou so muddy? What the F***CK? The smell on your body is even worse." Hu Shouxin tried his best to raise his head, trying to take in the fresh air of the stratosphere. Unfortunately, it was of no use. The mysterious smell on Qin Haodong was still tormenting his nasal cavity and attacking his sense of smell, making him curse in his heart. What kind of material did this little bastard mix into the stinky tofu? Cursing endlessly in his heart, Hu Shouxin was in a difficult position. Although it was Sun Lang who had placed the bait this time, this fellow's technique was too brilliant. No one could find any flaws or mistakes. It was Qin Hui who wanted to find Zhang Jianyuan. It was Qin Hui who had snatched the stinky tofu from others. The stinky tofu exploded and splashed all over her body. It was purely the 2 robbers' fault. It had nothing to do with Sun Lang at all. Hu Shouxin wanted to admonish and warn Qin Hui, but after the imperial envoy got off the sedan, he didn't complain, admit his mistake, or ask Hu Shouxin to help him get back at him. Instead, without another word, he began to howl loudly, crying like a dog. At this moment, he was still hugging Hu Oniai-chan, crying so loudly that even if Old Hu wanted to admonish him, he didn't know where to start. Behind them, flag-bearer Wan Yuanzhong also got off the sedan shakily. It was clear that the 2 civil servants had just encountered the greatest despair of their lives. The ferocity, brutality, and terror of their experience this time was probably one of the best in their lives. Who the F***CK would have thought that thing would explode? Hu Shouxin saw that Qin Hui was crying so miserably and sighed. Brother, let's go in and talk. Let's go in and talk. Be careful. Don't let anyone see." Qin Hui nodded his head, feeling wronged. He obediently followed behind Hu Shouxin and entered the Zhong-Yi Tower from the back door. Following the secret passageway, they arrived at Old Hu's study on the 3rd floor. His face was pale, and his body still trembled occasionally. It was clear that he already had a very strong psychological shadow. In the future, he would probably tremble when he saw the jar. After all, that kind of scene, that kind of memory, that kind of experience, it was truly too despairing. Before the 2 of them could retreat from the jar that flew into the sky, there was a sudden explosion. The jar in midair suddenly exploded, and a terrible substance gushed out. It was the most terrifying scene in the world. Qin Hui, who had experienced the Tianyuan War, could guarantee that even the Sky Demon would not do such a crazy thing. Looking at his cowardly appearance, Hu Shouxin sighed again. He poured a cup of tea and handed it to Qin Hui and Wan Yuanzhong. The 2 of them slowly sipped the tea, and their panicked mood gradually calmed down. The 3 of them were silent like this. After a while, Qin Hui suddenly laughed softly and said, "Little brother is really asking for humiliation." Hu Shouxin hesitated for a moment. Just as he was about to speak, he saw Qin Hui put down the cup and bow to Hu Shouxin with a downcast expression. He said listlessly, "These days, little brother has been in seclusion, concentrating on writing memorials. I have organized all the evidence and presented it to you for review. I am useless and have embarrassed you again." Seeing his pitiful appearance, Hu Shouxin did not know what to say. Qin Hui continued, "Yesterday, when I visited the various government offices in Mingzhou and chatted with the arrestor of the 6th Fan School, Liang Bufan, I accidentally heard about Qin Yu. He told me to find Zhang Jianyuan and said that Zhang Yuanwei had news of Qin Yu's whereabouts. After I got there, alas, I won't say it. I can't do anything right, but I'm good at ruining things. I am ashamed." He clasped his hands together. His figure was bleak, and his expression was gloomy, as if he had really suffered a great blow and was disheartened by everything. He slowly walked out of the door. Hu Shoshin did not stay much longer. He stood where he was and looked at the door. He looked in the direction Qin Hui had left and listened to the sound of him slowly going down the stairs. A moment later, he said lightly, "Do not relax your observation and protection of the Imperial Envoy. Closely monitor the movements of all the members of the Imperial Envoy team. Without my permission, the Imperial Envoy team is not allowed to hand out a single piece of paper." A low response came from outside the door. "Yes." The Guild of Wandering Knights still stood alone in the room. He lowered his head and looked at his right hand. His hand was shaking. It was unknown whether it was from excitement or fear. The final answer was about to be revealed. Would it be calm and tranquil, or a storm? If it was calm and tranquil, then everything was fine. If it was a storm, at least Sun Lang's anger, Empress's disloyalty, the change in the heroes of Tianyuan, and the truth that has been buried for a long time, I will eventually find out some of the truth. At least, I am indebted to the country and am not willing to betray the loyalty of my fellow soldiers. I can finally do some things. But I don't know what kind of result the current me is looking forward to. Also, the capital is peaceful. Tensei province is calm and tranquil. The relay stations from Mingzhou to the capital do not have any movements. The Imperial Envoy team's communication with the outside world is strictly controlled. The Imperial Envoy's memorials will be carefully reviewed by me. If Qin Hui really is plotting something, what will he do? What chance does he have? At this time, in Marquis Jinggan Fu, the atmosphere was tense. The tense atmosphere, the silent crowd. Sun Lang, Zhang Yinluo, Zhao Fei Huang, Su Qingwan, Dongfang Xian, and even Taoist by Shui, Zhang Jianyuan, and even Master Sanzang were all present. Everyone cast a complicated gaze towards Sun Lang. It was as if they were waiting for something, as if they were looking forward to something. Sun Lang was silent. He raised his head and looked around at everyone. His tone was low and deep. His voice was as powerful as ever, giving people a feeling of relief. "My turn," he said. Then his nimble and slender fingers swiped across the cold paper. This hand, in times of war, was the hand that protected the country, repelled foreign enemies, and looked down on the 6 armies with disdain. It held the unparalleled sacred sword. It made people want to know, how did he practice this unparalleled and terrifying swordsmanship? This hand, in times of peace, was the hand that brought happiness, loved women, and adjusted the balance of yin and yang. It had touched all kinds of women. It made people want to know what he experienced before he discovered that he had awakened a new ability. Right now, those 2 fingers were holding the future, holding the hope of victory between them. Sun Lang's lips curved into a confident smile. He stood up and raised the item in his hand high up. That smile seemed to announce the arrival of victory in advance. He looked at the 2 people in front of him. His clear and bright voice brought about a righteous judgment, giving the enemy the final judgment. Shine. The 2 kings converge. The blazing sun fuses. The intense light pierces the blue dome of heaven, swallowing the earth and sinking it. This is the wrath of Tsar Ivan. Roar, roar. I bestow upon you the righteous punishment of heaven. Its name is... He raised his right hand high up and threw the final judgment in front of the enemy. King Bomb. Taoist White Snow cried out, "How is that possible? How is this possible? I'm going to win. I'm going to win." Zhang Yinluo slammed the table and said angrily, "If you want to play cards, just play cards. Why are you acting like a wizard? Speaking of which, what's with these spells? Even those wizards in the West can't think of such cool lines." Sun Lang smiled as he played out the rest of his cards. He spread out his hands and announced his victory. Zhao Fei Huang, who was behind him, was already overjoyed as she cheered. The cow's spirit lost. Hurry up and follow the previous agreement. Go outside and twist your butt 3 times, imitate a cow mooing 3 times, and loudly sound a cow's spirit 3 times. Zhang Yinluo was stunned for a moment, then threw the cards away and said angrily, When did we have such an agreement? Dongfang Xin whispered to Zhu Ying. Did you see? This is what Sun Lang said about big boobs and no brain. All the nutrition she supplies to the brain has gone to her chest. She will lose, even in cards. Hey, what are you two talking about? This rule was proposed by him. I'll be damned if I can win in the first round. Zhang Jinyuan, on the other hand, silently stretched out his hand and pressed down on Priest by Shui's head with lightning speed. With a bang, Zhang Jinyuan pressed Priest by Shui's head onto the table with a loud bang. He slowly used Priest by Shui's robe to wipe his hands, then curled his lips and said, "Trash." White Snow flew into a rage and turned around to fight with Zhang Jinyuan. "Bastard, I haven't finished with you today." But Master Sanzang looked at the chaos in front of him with a confused face. Why is this poor nun here? Fighting, quarreling, and heckling, it was a mess. Sun Lang watched the show with a smile, and Su Qingwan was not involved in the battle. Compared to Zhao Feihuang, who followed Sun Lang's orders in everything, at this moment, Housekeeper Su was the most clear-headed person in Marquis Jing'anfu. She frowned, approached Sun Lang, and asked in a low voice, "Are you holding a celebration banquet?" Sun Lang smiled. "It's just a trivial matter, yet it's worth holding a celebration banquet. But originally, according to my plan, I was going to lure Qin Hui to shift his attention to me and make him waste time on this. Then I'll give him a ruthless blow when he's caught off guard. Not only will his face be covered in dirt, everything he did before will become useless, but the plan could not keep up with the changes. Zhang Jinyuan and White Snow interfered, and a few of us cooperated with each other without knowing, and we actually managed to perfectly deal a wave of damage." Zhang Jinyuan, who had already pressed White Snow under his body, heard Sun Lang mention him. He raised his head and gave Sun Lang a thumbs up, revealing a hearty smile. Sun Lang also gave a thumbs up. Zhang Jinyuan chuckled and was caught off guard, and his chin was hit by White Snow's rising Dragon Lord. The capitalist was furious. He raised his hand and sent out a Buddha's palm. The two of them once again fought with fists and feet on the ground. Su Qingwan's expression was somewhat conflicted. She decided not to look at the two of them. She did not know what kind of hopeless situation Qin Hui had encountered, but from Sun Lang's brief description, it was clear that the imperial envoy had suffered a great loss at Sun Lang's hands. The housekeeper felt uneasy and said in a small voice, "Then what should we do next?" Sun Lang rubbed his chin and said in a low voice, "Qin Hui has taken this blow and will definitely be greatly affected. At least he will become well-behaved. In my opinion, he probably won't make any big moves." Su Qingwan let out a breath. "So we're safe?" Sun Lang laughed coldly. "No, on the contrary, from now on, it is the decisive moment. Qin Hui, to be honest, I really don't understand him, but I can be sure that he is not someone who is easy to deal with. Although I can't think of any way he can turn the tables, we can't relax even a little." He said this and then muttered to himself, "So, what method does Qin Hui have to turn the tables?" Chapter 382. So, what's Qin Hui's plan to turn the tables? Sun Lang racked his brains, but still couldn't come up with a solution. On the other side, Taoist White Snow had just finished his counterattack and knocked down Zhang Jinyuan. Hearing Sun Lang's words, the Taoist White Snow remembered the hatred from before and sneered. "Counterattack? Stop dreaming. Our advantage is so—" Before he could finish his words, Sun Lang shot out like lightning. He grabbed a piece of chestnut pastry from the plate and threw it right into the Taoist priest's mouth. Not only did he beat the Taoist priest's wild ambition into his stomach, he also beat him to the ground, perfectly avoiding a troublesome matter from happening. Zhang Jinyuan was just a little careless and was knocked down by Taoist by Shui. At this time, he struggled and wanted to take revenge, but he saw Master Sun coming to help. He looked at Taoist by Shui on the ground and roared excitedly. He pressed Taoist by Shui to the ground and punched him. That was close. Sun Lang wiped the non-existent cold sweat and decided to leave this place. It was too King exciting to discuss plans with people like Taoist by Shui. He waved his hand, and went to a remote corner with housekeeper Sue. He said to her, "Come, let's continue to analyze how Qin Youqiao will turn the tables." Today, when I was tracking Qin Youqiao, I saw a few people from the Rangers Guild wandering around. In addition, there were many people outside the Zhongyi building. Old who should be suspicious. Although Stick who is rough, he is careful. Since he decided to be careful, he will not just pretend. So, Qin Hui's plan to get reinforcement from the capital is basically impossible. Zhao Feihuang noticed that Sun Lang's attention had been diverted, so she naturally wouldn't continue to quarrel with Zhang Yinluo. She grinned and leaned forward, listening attentively for a few words. Then she also raised her hand and said, "Qin Youqiao said that he wants to show me and Stick who the written memorials. When the time comes, I will also check them carefully." Sun Lang smiled to express his approval, and Miss Zhao laughed as if she had just left the headquarters. Then he raised a finger. Mingzhou is already an iron bucket. Regarding this matter, Qin Hui can no longer find a shred of evidence, because all of the important links are under our control. He also has no way of obtaining reinforcements from the imperial capital. Old Hu is watching him closely. Even if he wants to use his authority as an imperial envoy, it will probably be very difficult. Su Qingluan asked doubtfully, "Using the authority of an imperial envoy? What is he trying to do?" "Who the hell knows?" Sun Lang pretended to be deep and said, "During the Holy Grail War in Hangzhou, Zhao Go used up 12 command incantations in a row to make you Fei commit suicide. Brother Fei's magic dick is simply amazing. Although Stick who isn't as powerful, he's still an archer. So no matter what Qin Hui wants to do, it's useless." Su Qingluan rolled her eyes and looked at Zhao Feihuang in dismay. Sun Lang was saying something that no one could understand again. And when Sun Lang said this, he was suddenly shocked and slapped his thigh. "Suicide? Hey, Qin Hui wouldn't commit suicide, right?" The young girls were stunned at the same time. You see, Sun Lang said seriously. Under this kind of situation, if the imperial envoy suddenly died in Mingzhou and the news spread to the court, wouldn't that be F***ed? No matter what, a dignified imperial envoy dying in Mingzhou, no matter how you look at it, this is slapping the stupid emperor's face. If it were me, I wouldn't be able to endure it either. Not to mention the court and the common people, the central government would investigate strictly. Even the Yamen of Mingzhou that is sitting calmly on the fishing platform right now would jump up and down as if they're on fire. Then they would have to stay as far away from Marquis Jingon Fu as possible. He spread his hands and said, "Think about it. That kind of situation, wouldn't it be very terrible?" Su Qingluan was stunned, and then her expression changed slightly. It seemed that she was seriously considering the consequences of this kind of thing. The more she thought, the more panicked she became. Then she instinctively raised her head to look at eldest Miss, wanting to obtain psychological comfort from Zhao Feihuang. However, she only saw eldest Miss reveal a helpless smile. Housekeeper Su was actually not stupid and quickly reacted. He said angrily, "We're talking about serious matters. What nonsense are you saying? Lord Qin was fine. Why would he commit suicide?" Zhao Feihuang also said with a smile, "Sun Lang, don't bully Su Jiejie too much." Sun Lang spread his hands and said, "How is this nonsense? I'm just explaining a situation where Qin Hui could still call for outside help." Unfortunately, Su Qingluan rolled her eyes, clearly not believing him. Zhao Feihuang also only smiled. It seemed that he also didn't believe him. Sun Lang shrugged and closed his mouth. In any case, he had never counted on Marquis Jingon Fu to be of any help. If she didn't want to listen, then so be it. And Su Qingluan frowned as if she thought of something. She hesitated for a moment and slowly said, "Sir Sun, I have something to say, but I don't know if I should say it." "As long as you don't say that your mother sold her out, you can say anything." As usual, Su Qingluan ignored this nonsense. She deliberated over her words and carefully said, "I just feel that you seem to be somewhat reversed. I think that Marquis Jingon Fu's greatest enemy is not Imperial Envoy Qin Hui, but that Empress Tensei." Qin Darren has already lost the ability to resist after experiencing your multiple blows and perfect schemes. But even if Qin Darren yielded and presented a memorial that is absolutely beneficial to Marquis Jingon Fu, calming the public opinion in court, this does not mean that this matter will end like this. She softly said, because our betrayal is still a thorn in that Darren's heart. The secret that we hold is enough for her to always remember. Wanting to get rid of us quickly, this is our greatest enemy. This is what we should be preparing and scheming for. Housekeeper Su said this, and then glanced at Zhao Feihuang. Eldest Miss loves you deeply and is willing to trust you unconditionally, but I cannot blindly follow your lead. I must have an overall grasp and understanding of this matter, because the affairs of the world are unpredictable and constantly changing. I don't know what kind of ending you and Eldest Miss will have in the future, but she gazed at Sun Lang and calmly said, I will always guard by Eldest Miss' side and will never leave her. So I need to know your plans and understand your goals. This is my mission and task. If I have offended you in any way, please forgive me. Her words were calm, but contained an unshakable power, to the extent that young Miss Zhao ignored the offense towards Sun Lang and the distrust towards this relationship in her words. She could not even say a single word of reprimand. Zhao Feihuang was so moved that her eyes were filled with tears. She held Su Qingwan's hands, older sister Su. Su Qingwan revealed a smile, looking at the master that she wanted to protect for her entire life. As long as Eldest Miss can be peaceful and happy, whatever happens to me, it doesn't matter. Then she heard young Miss Zhao say emotionally, Don't worry, older sister Su, the Sun family will always have a place for you. And, Eldest Miss, I will always be Sun. Sun family? Eldest Miss, what are you saying, ah? Zhao Feihuang said matter-of-factly, I will naturally be the mistress of the Sun family in the future. If older sister Su wants to be with me forever, of course, you will have to marry into the family together with me. Young Miss Zhao had said this many times, but Su Qingwan was still full of resistance. She shook her head vigorously. No, Eldest Miss, I won't marry. Zhao Feihuang said with tears in her eyes. Older sister Su, you don't want me anymore? Su Qingwan suddenly shook her head. How can that be? Eldest Miss, I will always guard you. Young Miss Zhao took Butler Su's hand, shook it, and said in a coquettish tone, So, older sister Su will also marry Sun Lang. Sun Lang is so good. Older sister Su, if you don't hurry up and take action, are you going to give the opportunity to those cows who don't respect themselves? Eldest Miss, I think the one who needs to respect herself the most is you. During this period, Sun Lang had been standing aside and listening with a hearty smile on his face. With his thick skin, he didn't feel the slightest embarrassment, nor did he have any boring feelings such as, oh, it's really embarrassing. No matter how one looked at it, this guy's face clearly only had something like so good written on it. Knowing that Su Qingwan was in a difficult situation, she glared at him fiercely. Only then did Sun Lang come out to rescue her. He nodded at Su Qingwan and said, Loyal people. I have a good impression of them, so it's okay to tell you. I know that if I say that I welcome Empress to make trouble and tell you not to be afraid, you will definitely not believe me. Su Qingwan nodded without hesitation. She was His Majesty's favorite princess, one of the most brilliant generals at the end of the Tianyuan War, and even a strong contender for the throne. No matter how powerful his martial arts were, no matter how mysterious his origin was, could he wrestle with that kind of noble family? Sun Lang saw the subtext under her expression and just smiled. So, in the past 2 days, I have discussed with Old Hu and come up with a plan. If you want to completely solve this matter, you have to use 2 pipes at the same time. One pipe is inserted into the imperial court, and the other pipe is inserted into the Empress. He said something very important as if nothing had happened. Ignoring Steward Su's strange look, he continued, The imperial court is the imperial envoy. If a perfect answer sheet is handed back, you will cry more miserably and find some water army to hype up for you. Under the pressure of public opinion, The emperor will definitely be rewarded greatly. The significance of this matter is that the matter of the demon device has an official conclusion. In the future, if someone talks about this matter, it will be equal to slapping the emperor in the face. We seem to have discussed this before. Let's talk about the other side. You are right to be worried. According to that woman's character, if she can't do it openly, she will definitely do it secretly. She will not pin her hope on others. Sun Lang said lightly, "This matter needs a highly respected martial merit of Tianyuan to show up and negotiate with this woman, which means to let this matter pass. Everything has a risk assessment. Empress is afraid that this matter will be exposed and hinder her competition for the throne. This is her risk. And if you take the initiative to expose this matter, it will cause the Marquis Fu to be exterminated. This is your risk. So, you only need to make her feel that moving against the Marquis of Jinggan Fu is not worth the losses. And if you take the initiative to expose her, the losses will also not be worth the gains. After weighing the pros and cons, I'm afraid that she will not use any violent methods to break it." Sun Lang smiled. She is the kind of crazy woman who will disregard everything if she feels that she has a 50% chance. But if this chance drops to 49%, then she will definitely not act rashly. So, once she recognizes the risks involved, then this matter can be negotiated. And the remaining details are to make her believe that the confidentiality of this matter has already been done flawlessly. And Qin Hui's answer sheet can clearly prove this point. Hearing this, Su Qingwan could not help but say, "No, Empress," Sun Lang said indifferently. "We're friends who have gone through life and death." For a moment, looking at Sun Lang's appearance, Su Qingwan and Zhao Feihuang did not dare to ask more. And Sun Lang clearly did not want to say more. So, we don't need to worry about Empress's matter. Whatever happens is fine. Right now, I only pay attention to Qin Hui because I understand him. I have never fully understood him, but my instincts tell me that this guy is capable of doing anything. Zhao Feihuang nodded. "Then should we continue to make arrangements to guard against Lord Qin's final desperate actions?" Sun Lang snapped his fingers, smart. "This is the reason why I invited these friends over. Come, brothers, the Lord God has issued a mission. Come." Before he finished speaking, there was a sudden knock on the door. Su Qingwan and Zhao Feihuang looked at each other, nodded, and then said loudly, "Come in, what's the matter?" A steward of the Marquis's mansion hurriedly pushed the door open and entered. He first bowed to Zhao Feihuang, then looked around the crowd, and his eyes fell on Zhang Yinluo. The cow demon blinked and pointed to herself. "Looking for me?" The steward clasped his hands and bowed. "Miss Zhang, the steward of your mansion is outside the door. He sent a message saying that your father, Mr. Zhang, was unwell last night and missed Miss Zhang. So he sent someone to invite you back to stay for a few days. I wonder." Zhang Yinluo looked anxious. He stood up and said repeatedly, "My father is ill? What's the matter?" Sun Lang walked over and said softly, "Don't worry. Your father's martial arts are not bad. When I visited him a few days ago, he was full of energy, his hands and feet were strong, and his body was strong. There won't be anything serious. Let's invite the steward in and ask him first." Hearing Sun Lang's voice, Yinluo seemed to have found his backbone. His hand unconsciously climbed onto Sun Lang's arm. Sun Lang. Miss Zhao's face was cold, and she quietly bit her handkerchief. After a moment, the steward of the Zhang mansion was invited in. Zhang Yinluo recognized him and shouted, "Elder Zhou, how is my father?" "Miss, don't worry. Master's martial arts are profound, and he will live a long life. There is nothing serious." The old steward lowered his eyes and said, "It's just that when people are ill, they will always feel distracted and depressed. Those who have children will naturally miss their children. Master is the same, so he wants to ask Miss to go back and take care of him for a few days." Sun Lang frowned, feeling that this matter was not simple. Chapter 383. Sun Lang frowned, discovering that the matter was not simple. Just as he said before, Zhang Yinluo's father's martial arts were not bad. His body was very good. He was full of energy when he scolded people, and when he beat people, his fists and feet were like wind, as if he had eaten a lid. Other than being a little hot-tempered and having a bad temper, he clearly did not have any other problems. Sun Lang had already personally experienced this point in his previous intimate exchange with father-in-law. That was why it was strange, and the timing was a little too coincidental. But he could not say anything. After all, after the old father-in-law fell ill, he felt that he had become an old man with an empty nest. It was quite normal for him to want his daughter to go back and take care of him for a period of time, right? After understanding this matter, Sun Lang smiled and patted Yinluo's small hand, indicating that he was here for everything and there was no need to worry. Then he said to the Zhongfu's housekeeper in an amiable manner, "Elder Zhou, right?" This elder Zhou clearly had not heard of Sun Lang. Although he looked confused, he still followed the etiquette and bowed. This little old man does not dare. "May I ask what instructions does young master have?" And it seems like he does not recognize me, and father-in-law also did not say anything bad about me to him, he said with a smile. Elder Zhou does not need to be so courteous. We are family, so there is no need to be courteous. The old housekeeper blinked and said somewhat puzzledly, "It's like this." Sun Lang said sincerely, "I am your family's future son-in-law, the kind of lecher who wants to take away a lot of dowry after casually giving some worthless betrothal gifts. After getting tired of your family's eldest Mrs. Body, he will kick her aside. You did not expect this, did you?" As soon as he said this, Zhang Yinluo's face flushed red, and she elbowed Sun Lang's chest, angrily saying, "What are you saying in front of other people? What if you are misunderstood?" And Zhao Fei Huang could not pretend that she did not hear it. She was tightly hugged by Su Qingwan, but she still struggled with all her might, loudly saying, "Sun Lang, I don't want any betrothal gifts from you." The entire Marquis Jing and Fu was a dowry. Moreover, Big Sister Su was such a big and soft dowry. She was much better than the Milky Way spirit. "Hurry up and lie to me. Come and lie to me." Su Qingwan blushed and said loudly, "Please respect yourself, eldest miss. There are outsiders watching." Elder Zhou looked at the very excited Zhao Manor's eldest miss, then at his own eldest miss, and then at the sincere and pure Sun Lang. He almost couldn't catch his breath. What should I say? What should I do? So, if father-in-law is sick, as a lecher who covets the Zhang family's property, it is indeed a great opportunity to curry favor with him, right? Sun Lang said solemnly, "So, I think it's necessary for me to go back with Yinluo to help my father-in-law." "Zhang," Yinluo shouted, "rush the bad luck? Charge your head. Are you planning to loot a burning house? You bastard." So it's more or less like that. Sun Lang put on a very bashful expression, like a young man who was nervous about meeting his father-in-law for the first time. He was a little bashful, a little worried, but also a little expectant. He said somewhat embarrassedly, "Look, although I don't have a house, I don't have a job, and I also have a shocking dark history that I can't tell anyone about. I haven't even been able to get Yinluo pregnant. Like this, I probably don't have the face to meet my future father-in-law." Zhao Fei Huang shouted again, "No problem. No problem. Sun Lang, let's go to the ancestral temple to kowtow right now. Don't mention my father. Even meeting all of the ancestors is possible." Zhang Yinluo covered her face and didn't want to say anything else. She sighed helplessly. "Actually, it's not a problem if you directly state your goal." Sun Lang nodded and said directly, "I suspect that your father is pretending to be sick and secretly plotting an unspeakable goal, so I want to go take a look." This was too direct. Yinluo sighed again and said helplessly, "Why is my father pretending to be sick? Who knows?" Sun Lang said as if nothing had happened, "Maybe he wants to trick his filial son-in-law, who he doesn't like, and then ambush 500 executioners in the corridor, so that his grandson will lose his father or something nonsense." Zhang Yinluo rolled her eyes and glanced at the old butler. She said in a gentle tone, "Elder Zhou, you go back first. We will pack up and leave soon." "We?" When the old butler heard this, he was slightly shocked. He glanced at Sun Lang. No matter how you looked at it, this person looked very inappropriate. Was the young mistress really going to bring this person home? Did she really see him as her future husband? The master would definitely be angry. He felt that this sloppy man would definitely make the master fly into a rage. Although the old butler considered himself a servant, this kind of confidant who had served in the manor for a lifetime, whether in terms of seniority, prestige, or even the degree of trust of the master, determined that he was not a simple servant. Even the juniors of the master's family had to be treated with the courtesy of an elder, although he would not take advantage of his seniority and really treat himself as an elder. But how to put it? Humans were superficial creatures and were easily subtly influenced by the surrounding environment. For example, the so-called seventh-rank official in front of the prime minister's family relied on the power of the master's family to make the officials who had to ask the master to treat him with a smile and even call him brother. Over time, even the humble and cautious servant could not help but have the illusion that, actually, I have a lot of face, and his temper and arrogance would grow. If his master's power was the same as before, if the favor he received had not decreased, then it was fine. But if he met someone who did not need to give him face, Elder Zhou completely did not realize that this very unconventional young man in front of him really did not need to give anyone face. At this time, the old butler was thinking about how to persuade the young mistress to give up this plan. He even tactfully reminded her that this young man in front of him was not a good match. He even said whether or not to report this matter to the master. Or rather, did the master call the young mistress back with similar considerations? Then, he saw the young man, who was not at all flirtatious, look at him warmly. In an instant, the old butler's body froze. He felt as if he was being stared at by a ferocious beast. He could not even show a frightened expression or a trace of cold sweat. His eyes, mind, and heart were all occupied by the young man's gaze just now. Although it was only a gaze, he clearly understood the other party's meaning. Don't talk nonsense, or I'll kill you. Don't go and snitch, or I'll kill you. I'll chop you into mincemeat and feed you to the wild dogs on the side of the road. Then you'll turn into black poop and sleep on the earth forever and become a part of the material cycle of the ecosystem. Bastard, don't take advantage of your seniority in front of me. When I go crazy, I'll even hit my father-in-law. Although it was a bit complicated and difficult to understand, the old butler clearly understood the other party's meaning. Where did this kind of person come from? With this kind of horror and lingering fear, the old butler hurriedly nodded and agreed. He did not even say anything extra and ran out of the door. Zhang Yinluo seemed to have realized something. He sighed and looked at Sun Lang. What did you do again? Sun Lang looked innocent and cried out loudly. What can I do? What did I do? Zhang Yinluo sighed again. Come, let's make a deal. You can go back with me to take a look, but you have to promise me a few things. First, you're not allowed to hit my father. Second, you're not allowed to throw canned herring. Third, don't bully my family. If you can't do it, I'll ignore you. Zhao Fei Huang shouted at the side. Sun Lang, his father is bad. You must beat him hard. His family is also very rich and heartless. Throw as many canned herring as you can. Then beat up everyone in his family who can still breathe. You can ignore that kind of cow spirit. I'll always be with you. Sun Lang smiled and looked at Zhao Fei Huang. Well, I'll see her off. I'll be back soon. Don't worry. Hearing this, Zhao Fei Huang's excitement and desire to see the world in chaos quickly calmed down. Her brave appearance faded, revealing an uneasy expression. She lowered her head and whispered, You'll be back soon, right? Sun Lang's expression became a little strange, but he still nodded. So, under Miss Zhao's tearful gaze and biting her handkerchief, Sun Lang and Zhang Yinluo went out. Because she missed her father very much, Yinluo did not pack anything. Anyway, it was her home. Everything was ready-made, so there was no need to pack anything. Watching the two leave, Su Qingwan looked at her miss, who was a little depressed, and could not help but feel a little distressed. What was so good about Sun Lang? She gently hugged Zhao Fei Huang and said softly, Miss, don't be sad. That kind of man. Who said I'm sad? Miss Zhao's voice sounded with a smile. Butler Su blinked. Then you. Anyway, at this juncture, anything will seem suspicious, especially Zhang Yinluo, who also played a key role in the magic weapon incident. Zhao Fei Huang smiled. In this case, she was suddenly called back. Even I will be suspicious, so it's not surprising that Sun Lang want to follow the cow spirit to have a look. Butler Su was a little surprised, but you. Please, Sister Su. Some things are understandable, but it doesn't mean that I won't do anything. Zhao Fei Huang playfully blinked her eyes. Compared to that shameless milk cow, I'm at a disadvantage, so I must use some small tricks to gain an advantage. For example, just now, pretending to be pitiful is very useful, especially for someone like Sun Lang. Let's not talk about it anymore. Looking at the miss, who was bouncing and didn't seem to be sad at all, running back to the flower hall, Su Qingwan had a little doubt in addition to the feeling of, your tricks are really deep. The words that Miss didn't finish just now. Sun Lang. What? Chapter 384. Sun Lang, who had left the Marquis Fu through another door, clearly did not expect that he would be tricked by Miss Zhao. He glanced at his empty hands and said thoughtfully, visiting like this is not very good. Saying this, he glanced at Zhang Yinluo beside him. Do you want to bring some gifts? Yinluo cast a sidelong glance at him. You have such manners, Sun Lang said proudly. Don't look at me like this. A few years ago, I was the model of morality in the army. If there was a selection of the 5 good soldiers or the model soldiers of the membrane toad, model soldiers, then it would basically be monopolized by me. Even the current me also understands this kind of basic etiquette. Zhang Yinluo naturally did not believe that this kind of human scum in front of her would have the time to talk about morality. She snorted disdainfully at this, but she still said, Then what should we bring? Your family has scraped off so much of the wealth of the people. You basically do not lack anything. Sun Lang said as if nothing had happened, causing Yinluo to stare at him. He said thoughtfully, the most important thing is the intention. Furthermore, it has to make your father feel happy, and it has to be extraordinary. It has to be able to make him feel a deep sense of happiness and love. Zhang Yinluo listened and nodded repeatedly. When this guy was serious, he was not so unreliable. Then he heard Sun Lang say, seriously, therefore, we can just find a fellow villager who has just given birth and borrow his child. When the time comes, our family of 3 will carry the child to see father-in-law. He will definitely be so happy that he will shed tears of joy. Perhaps his illness will be cured without medicine. You want to directly anger my father to death. In short, the matter of bringing gifts was left unsettled. The two walked side by side, looking in the direction of the Zhongfu. For a moment, Yinluo became somewhat silent. Suddenly, she said, It has been a long time since we walked together like this. Sun Lang froze for a moment, then slowly nodded. Yes. Yinluo continued, The experience of working together in my memory seems to have happened a long time ago. It seems to have started from the incident with the strange doctor. No, perhaps it was even earlier than that. The incident with that monster. You seem to have become busy. You clearly claim to be a ranger who was too lazy to meddle in other people's business and would not do anything unless paid. Sun Lang was silent. The incident with the monster injured the Taoist priest, so you took him to the strange doctor for treatment. Many things happened to the strange doctor's place, so you sent his disciple to Lu Town to learn martial arts. After you came back with great difficulty, the imperial envoy came again. This time, it's a demonic weapon. It's the ending that we didn't manage to stop. Everything seems to have gone back to normal. As she walked, she turned to look at Sun Lang. But this time, it still has nothing to do with me. I was waiting at the immortal fishing tower, and now I'm waiting at the Marquis residence. I watched you leave early and return late, busy here and there, but I don't know what you're busy with and what you're doing. Sun Lang said slowly, Don't worry, haven't I already said it? This matter will be completely resolved very soon. At that time, we will... Can it really be completely resolved? Zhang Yinluo lowered her head and said softly, I'm very worried. Sun Lang, will you really be like before? Sun Lang tilted his head. Hmm? Zhang Yinluo lowered her head and walked slowly. She said softly, when we first met, in my eyes, you were just a ranger with some skills. We investigated Qin Yu's matter together. You brought me to Embroidery Hall to cause trouble, fought with housekeeper Su, and even ran to Marquis Jing'an's residence to cause trouble. Then, your opponent changed from Marquis Jing'an's residence to a monster called Xieji. You started to leave early and return late, acting alone. You even fought with Hu Shouxin at night, and beat this Tianyuan famous general until he was covered in dirt, and almost killed him. Song Province's great general Zhao Yunlong also came, and listened to everything you said. Then priest Bai Shui was heavily injured. You brought him to the strange doctor, and a new enemy appeared. This time, it was a strong enemy from the imperial capital. I don't know what happened after that, but as expected, you know something, right? You were sad about Senior Strange Doctor's death, so you brought Sima Ping to find your former comrade, and also another Tianyuan hero that I'm familiar with. When you came back from Lu Town, I was very happy. But my happiness did not last for many days because a new matter came. This time, it was the imperial envoy, the imperial court, the Empress of Tianyuan. Your opponents, your friends, your situation, you constantly met people you were familiar with in the past, no matter if they were friends or enemies. She turned her head and looked at Sun Lang. There was conflict in her eyes, and even a trace of fear. I'm afraid that one day, you will suddenly change from a small Mingzhou ranger to an important person that I never dared to imagine. I'm afraid that everything today is just your boredom. When the people around you change from these friends of Mingzhou to those high and mighty Tianyuan heroes, when you return to the past step by step, at that time, will you still remember me? Will you still keep our agreement in your heart? Sun Lang stopped in his tracks. For a moment, he was somewhat speechless. He very clearly realized one thing. The girl in front of him was not someone who could understand others, understand and tolerate everything. She would also worry about personal gains and losses, and she would also be fearful because she cared a lot. After all, although Sun Lang had never told her his story, and she had also said that she did not care when the highest military official of a province obeyed Sun Lang's every word, when he could act as he pleased in the face of the imperial envoy and even the imperial court, it was normal for her to feel uneasy. Zhang Yinluo was not stupid. She knew what this meant. She also knew that compared to this, her identity as a mere disciple of the spiritual vulture palace and the young lady of the Zhang family was so fragile. She was nothing at all. Yinluo. Sun Lang gazed at the girl and said seriously, I can't go back, and I definitely won't go back. Right now, I am the real me. My past was just another person's life, a nightmare that I definitely don't want to go back to. Right now, I only want to live for myself. Zhang Yinluo shook her head. She actually extended her hand and stroked Sun Lang's cheek. In a light voice, she said, but after all, you still live in this world, right? The past also has precious memories worth cherishing. So you still maintain your friendship with Hu Huaishou and accept Zhao Yunlong. Also, the anger in your heart has never been quelled. You don't want to let go of the hatred of the past, and you don't want to give up on the feelings of the past. You're also resisting the past. Sun Lang said quietly, that kind of thing is fine no matter what. No, I still hope that Sun Lang can be more frank. You cling to the past, but you still want to cut off the past. That's why you and Hu Huaishou ended up like this. I don't think that's good. The girl looked at Sun Lang and said calmly, right now, in what capacity are you dealing with Hu Huaishou, Zhao Yunlong, the imperial envoy, and the imperial court? Sun Lang, the earthling Sun Lang, the traveler Sun Lang, the extraterrestrial sky demon Sun Lang, and the victim Sun Lang. That was probably it. Sun Lang was suddenly a little dazed. Nobody had told him that before. Zhao Fei Huang didn't dare to say it. Master Lu didn't want to say it. Zhao Yunlong didn't care. Even if Hu Shouxin said it, Sun Lang wouldn't listen at all. Just as Sun Lang was in a daze, Zhang Yinluo smiled helplessly and said, It's like pushing you to the other side. However, I just feel that looking at you now, you're like a child walking alone in the dark. With every step you take, you look around nervously. I just feel that it's a little, she smiled. I feel a little sorry for you. Sun Lang sighed slowly, although he didn't know why he sighed. In Luo restrained his emotions and patted him on the shoulder with a smile. He said like an old man, "So, be more frank." Sun Lang forced a smile and said, "I'm a top-notch gentleman who doesn't hide my inner feelings and desires." "I'm not frank enough." Then the girl hugged him. It was the first time she hugged the person in front of her so frankly. She hugged him tightly and buried her head in his chest, letting him feel her warmth, her gentleness, and her feelings. She whispered, "Don't reject this world anymore, even if I won't." Sun Lang interrupted her. "You can't run away." After hugging for a long time, the two of them remembered that they were going to meet the parents this time. The atmosphere instantly became very awkward. Zhang Yinluo walked very quickly and appeared to be very cautious. It was as if she was afraid that this fellow would misunderstand her intentions and suddenly hug her like a beast and do this and that to her. What should she do at that time? I don't seem to be able to resist. What should I do? Reality proved that Yin Luo was worrying too much. Sun Lang was obviously a person who was worse than a beast. He was worse than a beast. Zhang Mansion was in sight, but he stopped and thought for a while. He slowly said, "I don't want to follow you in. I don't want him to get angry." Zhang Yinluo was a little moved. Firstly, she was moved that this guy was so self-aware. Secondly, she was moved that this guy actually knew how to think for her father. But she still said, "Don't you want to follow me and watch?" Sun Lang gave her a thumbs up and revealed a hearty smile. "I can secretly observe." So Zhang Yinluo entered the mansion alone with complicated feelings. She felt a little strange because she knew that there was a pervert secretly watching her. But what was with this inexplicable sense of security? She had mixed feelings in her heart. Under the guidance of the servant, she came to the courtyard where her father lived. She pushed open the door and saw her father lying on the bed. His forehead was covered with a towel, and his face was sickly red. Sure enough, the relationship between father and daughter was deep. She quickly ran to the bed and shouted, "Father!" At the same time, Sun Lang was lying on the roof. Like in the TV series, he dipped his finger with some saliva and used a little force to drill a small hole in the roof. He began to secretly observe. Is he really sick? What a coincidence. Chapter 385. After observing in secret, Sun Lang came to a conclusion. He was afraid that his father-in-law was really sick. What a coincidence! What a coincidence! He put the canned herring back into his pocket. It was just a cold. There was no need to use such strong medicine. Drinking some warm water should be enough. Sun Lang continued to observe in secret. In the room, Zhang Yinluo had already rushed to the bedside and began to feel her father's pulse. After a while, she breathed a sigh of relief and then scolded, "Cold. Father, why are you so careless?" Mr. Zhang revealed a loving smile and said slowly, "If I didn't get sick, would you be able to come back?" The girl blushed and said angrily, "Father, what are you talking about? This is my home. How could I not come back?" Mr. Zhang looked at his daughter's reaction. He didn't know why, but there was a nameless fire in his heart. He snorted, "That little bastard didn't come? Humph! He has no etiquette at all." Although that was what she said, if Sun Lang really came, the harmonious atmosphere of father and daughter's filial piety in this room would probably change greatly. Sun Lang, who had been secretly observing, almost laughed out loud. He was thinking about how he could flip over the roof and fall from the sky with an aha and shout, "Old bastard, I'm here to bring you water." You didn't expect that, did you? Would he be able to make his father-in-law break out in a cold sweat and then cure his illness without any medicine? Zhang Yinluo obviously also thought of this. She quietly put one hand behind her back, and, at an angle where Mr. Zhang couldn't see, she made the 18 dragon subduing palms, 9 white bone claw, 1 yang finger, young pioneer's hand chop, Chinibu corrective fist, and other martial arts moves. The warning was obvious. Although she didn't know where Sun Lang was hiding, she knew that Sun Lang was definitely watching her. It seemed that Yinluo's threat was effective. Sun Lang did not act blindly without thinking. Only then did she let out a sigh of relief. Then she angrily said, "Father, what are you saying? If he came back with me and was seen by the uncles in the manor, what would happen?" Mr. Zhang squinted at her. Though he didn't say anything, the meaning in his eyes was clearly expressed. "You have been wandering outside with this wild boy for such a long time, and what have you become?" Yinluo lowered his head in embarrassment and blushed. The more his precious daughter behaved like this, the angrier Mr. Zhang became. Especially when he thought of the little bastard who came to his door and boasted shamelessly a few days ago. He was so angry that he wanted to smash the little bastard's head with one punch. He snorted heavily. "You've been sensible since you were young. Although you're a girl, I had great expectations for you." Whether it was going to the Spirit Vulture Palace to learn martial arts or traveling to the Live-Fire Kingdom, it was all your own decision. I never interfered, and you didn't disappoint me. But now, you actually picked such a mischievous person for yourself. What's so good about that brat? Just thinking about it makes me angry. He pounded the bed and said angrily, "Why didn't that brat come? Is he guilty? Is he scared? He's so lucky. If he dares to appear in front of me, I'll press his head down and stuff his head into—" Zhang Yinluo's face was dripping with cold sweat. She hurriedly pressed her father, who was sitting up, excitedly back down. She said with a subtle expression, "Father, please don't say too much. Don't say too much." But looking at his daughter's appearance, he could only sigh silently. "Anyway, it's good that you're back. These 2 days, the family has missed you a lot. You should go and greet the aunts and sisters-in-law of each branch." Zhang Yinluo frowned slightly. She seemed to feel that something was wrong, but she couldn't tell what it was. But her father was sick. As a daughter, it was normal for her to stay at home for a few days and take care of him. Her father's request couldn't be found wrong, so she didn't know how to refuse. Anyway, even if I'm in the Marquis Fu, I won't be of much help." She finally nodded her head. "Daughter understands." "Father, rest first. Daughter will go and greet the elders first, then come back to listen to your admonishments." Eldest Sir Zhang waved his hand and closed his eyes. Yinluo quietly retreated. After instructing the servant girl who was waiting outside, she silently left. It seemed that she had to stay at home for a few days this time, waiting for his daughter's footsteps to disappear into the distance. Eldest Sir Zhang still had his eyes closed, but the fist under the blanket quietly clenched a little. He sighed silently. "It's good that you're back. It's good that you're back. I can't let you continue to meddle in the matters of Marquis Jinggan Fu." After Zhang Yinluo left, she seemed to walk aimlessly in the Fu. This was her home, and it was also the playground she explored when she was young. She could walk through it even with her eyes closed. She turned east, turned west, and in a short while she arrived at a small path that no one usually passed by. She looked to her left and right, shouting, "Come out." Just as she finished speaking, there was a gust of wind, and Sun Lang appeared by her side. He excitedly held her hand and said emotionally, "I knew you would definitely come. I've already prepared the carriage and passport to leave the country. There's someone there to receive us. The house is also prepared. Even the child's name has been determined by a fortune teller. Yinluo, let's elope now." Zhang Yinluo rolled her eyes and flung his hand away. "Don't mess around. What's going on?" Sun Lang asked with a puzzled expression. "What do you mean, what's going on?" The girl looked at him from the corner of her eyes. "When I just left, didn't you stay at the same spot and continue to monitor my father to see if he had any strange behavior?" Sun Lang laughed out loud. "Am I that kind of person?" "Yinluo, you actually suspect your father." "How can there be such a daughter in this world? I really feel sad for your father." The more exaggerated he acted, the more suspicious Yinluo became. The girl's voice became colder. "Tell me the truth." Sun Lang's face appeared to be in a difficult position. He hesitated for a moment before giving up and saying, All right, you forced me to do this. I did stay at the same spot to see if your father would say the villain's lines after you left. However, I never thought that I would see a very shocking scene. Luo swallowed her saliva. What shocking scene? Sun Lang's face was full of shock. You might not believe it, but after you left, your father's expression changed, revealing a mixture of pain and joy. Then, something terrible happened. His quilt suddenly bulged, as if his stomach was very, very big, as if he drank water from the daughter's river. Zhang Yinluo gasped. What happened? Sun Lang's face was full of shock. I don't know either. I was also very desperate. What the hell is going on? In the blink of an eye, a big sister with disheveled clothes came out of your father's quilt out of thin air. The kind that looks like she hasn't been weaned yet, because there are still traces of milk left on the side of her mouth. Speaking of which, how did your father give birth to such a big sister? Before he finished speaking, Zhang Yinluo was silent and used a move of the black tiger steals the heart. Sun Lang dodged, of course, and shouted, What are you doing? What are you doing? Although we shouldn't wash our dirty linen in public, we are a family. Family your head, Zhang Yinluo said frantically. I will never be fooled by you again. How many times have you fooled me? So, your father's illness is real. There shouldn't be any problems. When Zhang Yinluo was tired of chasing, Sun Lang sat on a tree branch and shook his legs with a smile. Let's stay at home for the next 2 days to show our filial piety. After this matter is over, we will have to accept missions all over the world. When that time comes, we will probably have to go on a long journey. Who wants to go on a long journey with you? Zhang Yinluo mumbled and waved his hand. Get lost, get lost. Sun Lang smiled and jumped down. He took a few steps forward and stretched out his hand. Give me the Jinghong sword. You want to use a weapon? Although Zhang Yinluo felt it was strange, he still took off the Imperial Army sword from his waist and handed it to the person in front of him. Sun Lang unsheathed the Jinghong sword. The blade of the Jinghong sword was like a pool of autumn water. As it spread out, the sword hummed softly and emitted waves of joy and respect, like a child who had seen the father he admired. He smiled slightly and placed his hand on the hilt of the sword. He drew an upward stroke with 2 fingers close to the blade of the sword. In that instant, Zhang Yinluo, who was connected to the Jinghong sword, was dazed for a moment. He faintly felt that his Imperial Army sword seemed to have changed to some extent. However, he could not tell what the change was. However, if it was done by Sun Lang, it should be a good thing. Then there is no problem. Sun Lang handed the Imperial Army sword back to Zhang Yinluo. Your martial arts are still too weak. In the future, I will teach you some things. Accept them with gratitude. I usually don't teach others. Zhang Yinluo snorted. Who taught you such a mess of strange skills? Sun Lang smiled proudly. Didn't I tell you before? When I was young, there would often be some monks and Taoists who would deliberately pass by my house. After seeing me, they would immediately practice a set of ultimate martial arts in front of me. Then they would kneel on the ground and hug my legs, begging me to learn a little. I couldn't stand their begging. After a long time, I gained this set of good martial arts. Go to hell. Zhang Yinluo took the sword and gave him a shove. Sun Lang smiled. Then, I'm leaving. The girl nodded lightly. Then, she watched as Sun Lang leaped onto the wall. He waved at her and then disappeared like the wind. Zhang Yinluo watched him leave. Suddenly, he felt an inexplicable chill. Then, uncontrollable panic and worry appeared in his heart. It was not that he was worried about his own safety. She trusted Sun Lang. Since Sun Lang was willing to let her go home alone, he must have made thorough preparations. He would not let her come to any harm. However, she took a deep look into the distance. However, the safety of Sun Lang, the safety of Sun Lang, the soul of Sun Lang, the future of Sun Lang. Who would worry about them? Who could protect them? She hugged the Jinghong sword tightly. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.